All right. Good. All right. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025 at 6 p.m. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us this evening?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you, Lane.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Lane.
Thank you for the honor.
Okay. We have no local liquor control board business. We're gonna do the Cannabis Control Board in a second. Just a note on the order of agenda, we are adding an item K, so I'll just mention that now and I'll mention it again. But we'll close this portion of the Select Board, reopen as the local Cannabis Control Board, and we're considering the Cannabis Control Board renewal application for the Hidden Grove LLC. Stephanie Waterman is here. If anyone has any questions, or if Stephanie, you want to tell us anything about the renewal or how things have been going, you're free to do so.
Hi everyone, nice to see you again. I don't really have anything to say. It's been a great year. It's been interesting. It's a roller coaster in the cannabis business, but we're figuring it out 1 year in and starting to catch our stride. I do want to extend an invitation to anyone on the board who'd like to come visit the Hidden Grove and talk it all about cannabis businesses. I'm always open to that. You know, reach out to me via email. I'd love to schedule a little tour. We are the smallest dispensary in the state, so you know, it's just a little craft thing and we like it.
Okay.
So.
Questions for Stephanie? Lenny?
Stephanie, how difficult is it to navigate the Cannabis Control Board process in terms of renewal of licenses?
I think if you're doing it on your own, it can be extremely confusing. I have an attorney work through it with me, and I think it's well worth the money to pay them for the headaches, because I do find that people who are trying to do it themselves, it's a little bit unclear, and so it's helpful to work with someone who's like, no, this is what they mean here.
Okay.
And then you just get it right the first time versus a lot of back and forth with the board.
And on the town, on the municipal side, is it fairly easy to navigate for the municipal side?
It is extremely easy.
Okay.
And the
That's
town has always been great to work with, and Lisa's been helpful, and everyone responded promptly. And if they didn't, I can poke them because I know everyone in town. So it was helpful because all the departments sign off on your renewals. So
Okay.
we check back in annually. So.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to see we're doing whatever we can to support your business in town.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
yep.
Other questions or comments? Not, I will take a motion. Mary?
Okay, I move that the Select Board as the Cannabis Control Board renew the application number S-0000100551 for the Hidden Grove LLC.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we've approved the renewal. Thanks very much, Stephanie, for coming in.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, we will close this portion of the Cannabis Control Board, reopen as the Select Board. Order of agenda, like I mentioned, we added an item K. We'll be hearing from Brian, my guest, on there later.
And that has to do with the purchase of highway road salt, just for people to know that. Yep.
All right, well, we'll do public comment. We'll start with people in the room, and then we'll see if there's anyone on Zoom. If you want to comment, please identify yourself and your town or village of residence. You'll have 3 minutes to comment. We have a little timer. When that goes off, we'd ask you to sum up your remarks. Any comment in the room? Okay, seeing none. Any comment on Zoom?
No hands are up at the moment.
Okay, we will end public comment and move to Select Board comments and announcements. Kim, do you have anything?
Just to remind folks that there's an information night here at Town Hall, which has historically been at the high school, but it's Monday, January 13th, 6 o'clock here at Town Hall, where there will be information about some of the local option tax proposed purchases, including vehicles and public safety equipment, as well as a discussion around the proposal of the local option sales tax. So it's Monday, January 13th, right here at Town Hall.
Thanks, Kim. Brandon, anything?
Not tonight.
Mary?
Not tonight.
Ivan?
Nope, no comments.
Lanny?
Yep, just to remind people that there's still time for petitions for select board seats. If you wish to run for the select board, there's still time. Contact your town clerk. And remember that it's always good to have people from the community step up and try to lead our actions here in town.
All right, thank you, Lanny. I don't have any comments tonight, so we'll move to appointments. We have two appointments tonight. The first is to consider the appointment of Cathy Geiger to the Hartford Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning January 7th, 2025, ending January 6th, 2028. And Cathy is here. Cathy, if you'd like to come up, just tell us a little bit about your interest in this position. And if you have any questions, we will ask you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Cathy Geiger. I'm a resident of West Hartford. In the winter of 2002, I moved up here with my family. My daughter's now in college. She went from age 1 to grow up here through the whole school system, went from pre-K all the way to high school. And so we're longstanding members of the community. Between, I believe, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was 2017 to 2019, I was on the Hartford Energy Commission initially for a 3-year appointment. As that appointment was coming to an end, I decided it was better to commit to a new job, focus on that job, focus on my family. I was lucky because 3 months later into a new job, COVID hit. So it was a wise decision. I'm on the other side of that now. And when I want to commit, I'd like to be readmitted. My focus before is the same as it is now. I am really interested in local energy for New England. I really think like New England would be so resilient if we had our own energy systems. We still have to rely on a multiplicity of fuels. We have to work with a multiplicity of networks, but I think options is huge. And I'm really interested in that for jobs. I really want to see local jobs in the community where local people are generating local energy, got local people coming in to repair my boiler, my heat pump, my solar, whatever I got. Local energy people are people you know, you shake your hands with them, there's a problem, they know you, they know your cat, they know your dog. It's a way to just grow the community. And if we had our own independent energy, I think the community would be so much stronger because we wouldn't need to be divided over who's got outside sources versus inside sources. So
Great. Any questions for Cathy? Mary?
Yeah, I had a quick question. I think I know the answer to this, but I thought I'd actually ask you. You have an amazing background in energy in many different ways.
thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, you've been a resident for 22 years, and yet it said that you were a faculty member for University of Delaware up to 2016. Was that an online course? Did you have a home down in Delaware and a home up here? I just didn't understand that.
Yes. It's a little complicated, but in 2002, I accepted a position at Krell. I went up and worked at Krell. There were a lot of complexities that happened at that time, and I became an embedded faculty at Krell because the climate work I was doing was a little complicated. I can talk with you over that separately, but basically I became an embedded faculty at Krell for 4 years, where I was a faculty member at Delaware, but I resided at a Krell facility. And so it was a cooperative partnership. And then when that ended, I remained up here in the Upper Valley. So my residence was here. I lived here. I did jump on a lot of airplanes and go all over the place. But it didn't matter where I lived. It was, I was teleworking before it was popular.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey,
Cathy, just one question for you is that in terms of the town of Hartford, what do you see as the biggest hurdle for us in terms of energy and what the Energy Commission can do for us that we could have input towards?
I think the biggest thing is patience. We have to have patience to do this right. If we go too fast or we decide too much too soon and we don't have everything ready, and also don't go too slow. So we need the right pace. We need to think about what can we do with the budget we have, with the size we have, with the community we have, and there needs to be communication. I feel like, I mean, I stood up on the polar sea ice and spewed out science out my nose for years. And without the right communication from the top across the community and everywhere, if it's not communicated properly and we don't get everybody on board, then there's resentment and discontent and divisiveness. And so we've got to do this together. And so time for communication, time for education, for people to feel comfortable. You know, if we need to do more showcases to show people how heat pumps work, you know, have an open showcase to show people how a heat pump works. So that we can, we need to disseminate effective communication about energy. Why are we choosing this energy? Will it help? How many people does it help? What core areas will it help? And does everybody get a piece of the action? So I'm a big advocate for communication.
We had previously, the board had set a deadline of, correct me if I'm wrong on this, anybody that remembers, but 2027 for the town of Hartford to be carbon neutral. What is your opinion on that goal?
You know, we're crushing the threshold right now of the whatever it is, 1.5 degrees centigrade. You watch the weather, you watch your community. I think from what I've learned in my experiences in life, when people are ready, they'll do what needs to be done. The British are famous for saying Americans work great when they're placed on the brink. So the number is a goal. A goal is a plan. And I work in the medical field now. And the biggest thing I've learned is plans can change, but plans are good to make because it sets a target and goal. So the number will be reached when it's ready. And it has to be ready with the right infrastructure.
As a snowmobiler, I pay particular attention to the weather because we don't have any snow. So yeah, just disturbing to me. So, okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Kathy? If not, I'll take a motion and just FYI, John gave us a very handy sheet of motions.
Thanks to Lana.
Nice, but I will take a motion on this one.
There.
Yes.
I move to approve the appointment of Cathy Geiger to the Hartford Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning January 7th to 2025 and ending January 6th, 2028.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that
We have
motion.
a second from Mary. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Kathy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The town of Hartford would be honored and is honored to have you on the Energy Commission.
Okay, we have one more appointment. This is a reappointment of John Haffner to the Committee on Housing and Homelessness for a 2-year term beginning January 7th, 2025 and ending January 6th, 2027. This is a reappointment, so John does not have to be here. If anyone has any questions or comments, you can raise them now. If not, I will take a motion.
Is John online?
No.
Randy?
Just wish to express my enthusiastic approval of Mr. Haffner to be reappointed to this board where he will probably continue to serve as chair. He has done so in a very good manner so far that I've been able to see as liaison to this committee.
All right, thank you, Brandon. I'll take a motion. If anyone would like to make one.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board reappoint John Haffner to the Committee on Housing and Homelessness for a 2-year term beginning January 7, 2025 and ending January 6, 2027.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
There's a second from Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That ends our appointments and we'll turn it over to John for the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very sorry to report the recent resignation of Hartford Police Chief Greg Sheldon, which will become effective Friday, February 28th, 2025. I've actually asked him to stay on for 1/2 of one additional day. So he'll be at the town and school committee meeting speaking about that L.O.T article that includes several vehicles, including a new cruiser. So that will be, I think, his last official duty in town. The select board approved a 2026 general fund budget at its December 19th wrap-up session, number 3. At the January 21st meeting, the select board will vote to adopt an updated version, which will factor in any petitions for social service organization funding which have been received. I've been told by Gail that we should probably also save the date of January 23rd as a placeholder in case there's any last minute glitches with the petitioning process or weather. Thanks to all department heads for their hard work to bring expenses into line with available revenues in order to minimize the impact on Hartford's taxpayers. In particular, thanks to Finance Director Gail Ostrout for her tireless efforts to oversee the process. Just a quick note that I'll be out of the office January 15, 16, 17, returning the day after the Martin Luther King holiday. So I'll be here the 21st for that select board meeting. In addition, a few things I'd like to highlight from SIGAX that were submitted. Lisa has reminded us that January 16th is the date by which article petitions are due by 5 p.m. in the town clerk's office, and that January 27th is the deadline for candidate petition and consent forms to be turned in by 5 p.m. in the clerk's office. The Department of Public Works has received a draft feasibility study amendment or supplement from Sanborn Head, and we hope to present that to the select board at the January 21st meeting. Stay tuned for that. The communications and media specialist notes several items he's been working on, one of which was creation for the town's holiday video, which was very well received in town, and a lot of kudos to him for putting together such a nice festive greeting for the town's residents. He also worked with the IT director to gather together ordinances to be digitized, so that process is underway. He's working with the community nurse on plans for outreach, development of brochures and materials, that kind of thing, and has updated the town meeting cycle postcard and a website. The Department of Parks and Recreation points out that they will begin working with park architecture on a plan for Lyman Point Park. An RFP for the improvements was disseminated recently, and they hope to receive several submissions for review near the end of January. Scott also points out that the department continues to work on agency re-accreditation, and they have a submission due on January 15th. The Hartford Historic Preservation Commission, as reported by the Planning Department, will be holding a meeting on Wednesday, January 15th. And among the topics to be discussed will be a community discussion on what to do with the recovered White River Junction Railroad Station weather vane. So if anybody has any interest in that topic, please participate in that meeting. The fire department notes that Captain Chris Doobie had a retirement event on December 21st after his 32 years of service with the town, and that we are all very grateful for his many years of service. Effective January 5th of this year, Brett Quillia will be promoted to captain and Taylor Wilkins will be promoted to lieutenant. There's also a note from Scott Cooney that the community nurse started officially on December 3rd. She's been gradually increasing her hours while transitioning out of her former role in Heartland. Starting with the new year, she'll be at full capacity at 25 hours per week. Thus far, she's received 11 potential referrals of care from the Bugby Senior Center, the VA, and even a self-referral through email. Everyone's very amenable and understanding that the nurse will begin actively engaging with client care coming the first week of February. Police Department points out that they were awarded a 2024 BJA fiscal year 24 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for $11,186, and those funds will be used to replace expired ballistic helmets for officers. The Outreach Division of the PD is excited to announce the open embedded police social worker position from HCRS has been filled. This embedded position has been vacant for a good part of the summer, so filling this vacancy brings much needed assistance to the Outreach Division. Also, the vacant embedded substance use responder position from Claire Martin is close to being filled. Once the top applicant's background is complete, she will join HPD Outreach Division under the day-to-day supervision of Lieutenant Carl Ebbinghausen. Again, much needed assistance to the Outreach Division and the Hartford community.
All right, questions for John on anything? Good.
Any updates on the housing specialist in the planning department?
I believe I'm told, maybe Lisa will correct me. I believe I'm told that interviews are soon to be scheduled. They have done the job advertisement and have received a response. Yep.
Other questions for John? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, John.
Sure.
All right, our next item is Design Review Committee update. Not quite sure who is. What's this date?
Lana tells me that somebody was planning to be here tonight.
Okay, well, if they show up, but we are a little bit ahead in the agenda. So I would say let's table that until someone shows up, if they do.
We just got an email from Marcy Bartlett saying that she missed public comment by 3 minutes. So perhaps we could discuss her question without her online. Do you want to see if you want to hear from her, or?
I think she has a local option tax question, and that's probably most appropriately addressed
During
when we get to that agenda.
Okay, I'll let her know. 'Cause I don't-
That's what we normally ask people to do.
Okay.
We have a
Yep.
specific agenda. All right, Brandon.
Oh, just wanted to mention that I'm the select board liaison to the design review committee.
Okay.
And since I've been on the board since March, we have met, I think, once, and
Okay.
I haven't been able to, I wasn't able to attend that one time. So I don't, I'm not sure. Basically, the committee hasn't received applications, and therefore it's not been very active.
Okay, yeah, so we may not hear from anyone on that, but if someone shows up, wants to enlighten us, we will give them the time. That being said, I think we can move on. Our next item is a light pole banner request from J.A.M.
I wonder if anybody's here online for that.
Cedar is.
Very good.
And Cedar has their hand up,
Okay.
so
Let's hear from Cedar.
you should be good to go. Cedar, go ahead. We can't hear you, Cedar. Looks like you're unmuted, but kind of.
Conservation Commission.
Cedar, can you hear us?
Let me try, Cedar, I'm gonna try to promote you to panelist and see if that helps.
All right, now can you see and hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right.
Yay.
So you've got a request to hang some banners. Do you want to just tell us about that?
Yeah, so the banners are for the White River Indie Film Festival, which has happened every year in this town for 20 years. They have a design by a local artist, Jess Raymond, and yeah, essentially, we would want to, if possible, feature her designs from the last 3 years, and they would hang up during the time of the film festival just to, yeah, get people excited for it and get people excited for art in the area.
And it looks like this would be for 1 month. From
Yep.
January. Okay. And are they going to primarily hang in downtown White River?
Yep.
Questions for Cedar from anyone? Lanny?
Is it just this one banner that will be 18 across the downtown area that you've given us? you said different artwork, so I just want to know if it's just going to be this one banner or multiple banners.
Yeah, so hopefully it would, we have to figure out how much, whether it would cost more to print two other designs, but it would hopefully be that design and then two other very similar designs that were from years past of the festival, just so they're kind of like evergreen and we can use them again. And they just, I can send the designs if there's like an email or something if you guys would like to see, but.
I believe that all designs have to be reviewed by the select board.
Okay,
the
well.
the one you're giving us is fine, but I mean, we've had the other committee that did bring something before us brought examples of their, what they were gonna put out, so.
Yeah, but we didn't see like the individual banners for each of the hometown.
No, they gave us an example of how the layout would be, and they ended up like that, so.
Yeah, this is kind of an example. Oh, yeah, this is kind of an example of, this is similar to like that. But if you guys just.
I would feel more comfortable knowing what other type of artwork will be on the banners for downtown versus, I mean, this one banner you presented to us, I believe is fine. If you were to put 18 of these up, I don't think there'd be an objection to it, but I just am leery about having something, just giving authorization for banners that we haven't even seen a close representation of what they will be.
Okay, well, we're hitting close to the date, so for timing's sake, you guys just approved that banner, we could just hang that banner. Like, we could not.
I don't think we saw really with the hometown heroes what they would look like or who the people
We did.
are. I have no problem moving ahead with this. This is representative of the other banners.
Can I ask, Cedar, are the other two designs what have been used previously for posters? Like it's the same kind of artwork that would have been used on previous years marketing for the White River Film Festival?
Yes, they're the last 2 years posters.
I mean, I can
We
pull
have
them up
access
right now, or later as Cedar, if you can email those images to selectboard@hartfordvt.org. And even if what you have has dates on them and they wouldn't, but if we could just see the imagery.
I would just like to see the imagery
That would
before,
probably satisfy.
because it'd be nice to see what we're going to display in the downtown area as far as the image of them. Do you have ready access to them?
Yeah, I'm pulling them up right now, and also that's entirely understandable.
And I just,
Come on.
you wouldn't allow me to put something up on, your area without seeing what it was firsthand.
Oh,
No.
I actually live right downtown on Main Street in White River Junction. So
You can show us what they look like, maybe the board, but I'm perfectly comfortable looking ahead of this.
Same
Imagine
as-
a board majority is too, but if you can show us now,
Yeah.
that might help Lanny, but I don't see any amounts to vote on.
Can you pull them up and share your screen? That'd be
yeah,
fine.
I can share my screen. But I was just gonna email them.
Just share your screen.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. Let me figure out how to do that. All right. Oh, just share screen. Okay.
You did put in presenter, right?
Yeah. There we go. And here's one. And here's well, there's one of them. Can you see that? It might look a little chaotic.
No.
You don't
We're
appear
not
to be
seeing it yet.
sharing your screen.
No, you're not seeing it yet? Okay.
You guys can move ahead. I'm not comfortable approving something I haven't seen. I don't think it's appropriate to approve something that you haven't seen, even a similarity of. Yes,
All
these
right.
other, but I just, it'll pass with the rest of the board. I just don't personally feel comfortable without seeing what you're gonna put up there.
Can you see that in
No,
Chrome?
no.
Here.
Can you email them to Kim? And then
Yeah, I
Kim
can email them
put
to
on screen. That shouldn't take very long.
It's just,
yeah.
it's a pleasure board. I just don't feel comfortable doing it myself.
would you send me let me know the email to send this to?
Yeah, just send it to selectboard@hartford-vt.org.
Select board at, oh, sorry, what was that?
Hartford
Yeah.
-VT as in Vermont .org.
Okay, and here are the poster versions that I can attach for you. That should come in just 1 second.
Okay, great. And Kim, you should be able to share your screen so we can take a quick look.
All right. Sorry about the trouble sharing my screen.
No worries.
Did it get kicked back? Did the email get kicked back?
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
You got it?
We got it.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's saying there's a security.
Yeah, that's
Situation.
nice.
I didn't get that.
Oh,
Where's taxes?
We
See
won.
one of them.
We got one.
You got one?
Yeah. The one with the bear.
Okay, let me change the other into like a lower file and then resend it.
I got the other one.
I got the other one.
Yeah, here.
Oh, okay.
I just had to request access, but
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
I'll just say, while we're doing this, I really appreciate I mean, besides the fact that the festival is an awesome thing, that the town is a longstanding sort of community event, and then the fact that you've been using Jess, a local artist who's a good friend of mine, whose artwork I really
Nice.
love. I'm just thrilled about this request, and I look forward to seeing these banners in our community.
and we have one up now on the screen,
That one.
so everyone can take a look at that,
Okay, I'm fine with that.
and then we'll look at the other one.
Thank you, Cedar. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Oh, that was Design Review Committee.
Kim, you-
Yeah,
the
let
other
me
one?
see. I think I can probably just do it from here.
I do have a question of the board, though.
Here's the other one.
There's the other one. Let's take a look at that, and then Lanny has a question.
How do we as a board define commercial advertisement?
It's in
Yep.
in the banner policy, a nonprofit can have they won't have the sponsorships and stuff on there. This is it'll be just the imagery. So like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cedar, but so on the one that was shared in the presentation, it didn't have a list of the sponsorships or anything. And yeah, and Cedar can confirm. So the imagery, the artwork on those other two banners will be included, but not the sponsorships or any commercial indication.
Where is that in the banner policy that you're seeing that
It's in
they
the banner.
can? Because I see that banner policy states that no commercial advertisement of any kind. That's what I'm trying to understand. I just want to make sure that we're following the banner policy, because there was such contentious discussion around the Hometown Heroes banners. I want to make sure that we're following the same requirements for this banner. I don't see that in here. I mean, I realize it says exceptions may be made by a majority of the select board, but we don't want to set the wrong precedents either. So,
I don't see anything, I don't see a commercial advertisement.
well, it's just it's an
Advertising
advertisement.
the film festival.
Well, that's why I'm saying I just want to make sure that it didn't have these sponsors on them that's there. I just want to make sure that we're in compliance. there was a great deal of discussion and a great amount of time that was given to the Hometown Heroes banners. I think that we owe the same amount of time, or not the same amount of time, but at least a quarter of the time to discussion and examination to make sure that these by J.A.M are what's appropriate for downtown as well. So I'm fine to go ahead with this as long as they don't have any sponsors with them listed on the banners.
Cedar, there aren't going to be any sponsors listed on the banners, correct?
No, there will not.
Okay. Other questions for Cedar, or I'll take a motion? Yes.
I have a question for John, and I also want to include Cedar on this. I voted against the Hometown Heroes banners on the premise that we never got any kind of information from Vermont League of Cities and Towns that if there was a group that wanted to use banners, and this is definitely not the indie festival, that was an extremist group that we, according to our policy here, it says the select board, Hartford Selectboard shall have the authority to refuse the hanging of banners which do not benefit the community at large and or which do not meet specifications set forth below. And so we, this was at a point in time when the Supreme Court had basically made a decision when a large town, as in Boston, refused to fly a banner and said that we couldn't refuse that. So I tried to reach out again to VLCT to see if there had been any changes, because I feel uncomfortable saying no because of that reason to the Hometown Heroes and then saying yes for this one. Do I recuse myself? Understanding that I totally agree with these, you know, the process that Cedar has brought about, but I'm concerned about the town. And if I start saying, well, I'll accept one versus not the other, that leaves me in a kind of limbo.
Did you recuse yourself from the Hometown Heroes vote, or just voted?
No, I voted no because I didn't see it wasn't, you know, a conflict of interest or anything, so I just
I
voted.
suppose you could vote no on this one if you want to.
I could do that. I just didn't know if
I
John
certainly
had
don't
heard
feel
anything.
qualified to advise you on when you should recuse yourself
Yeah,
to be consistent in your own
well,
conscience.
that's what I was figuring. And I just want to say, Cedar, like I said, I totally agree with this. I actually worked in Park City, Utah during the time that they had films and absolutely enjoyed it tremendously and thought they were great. So if I vote no, it's not because I don't support you. It's because of my concerns about legality and being consistent.
Thanks, Mary. Other questions or a motion? Yeah.
I mean, I empathize with your concerns, Mary, and I think what's gonna happen is at some point, if before the board comes an application that the board wants to refuse, there's potential for a lot of blowback, and I would highly recommend, if that ever comes to be, that the board discontinues policies, banners entirely, but yeah, that is a real consideration.
One of the things I thought was important when we had the Hometown Heroes discussion is that we had a policy that we followed and that set out rules for this. And so when I look at this, basically, and I voted yes for Hometown Heroes, is if unless a proposal violates any of the things laid out in the policy, I'm going to vote for it, whether or not personally I'd like to see it up in downtown. So I am going to vote for this, just like I voted for Hometown Heroes. And I think the board people can vote yes or no, depending on how they feel. Danny?
So when Hometown Heroes came before the board, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a presentation of the number of polls and where the banners were stated to be published. I mean, are these going on every light pole in downtown White River Junction?
Cedar, can you answer that?
So the banner application said that I could put 18 up in downtown, or that we could put 18 up in downtown. And I didn't know that there would be more of a ask for a plan than that. But yeah, 18 as specified was the plan.
it looks like you filled out our application form as it was drafted, so I don't know that we would expect you to do more than what was there.
Does anybody recall how many poles there are with brackets?
I don't, we had a map that designated all poles, some of which town owned, some of which the town didn't own. But I do remember that 18 was one of the compromises made during that long discussion, that there would be
Right.
no more than 18 in any particular village.
In terms of brackets, are there 18 poles with brackets?
Yes.
Who purchased, were the brackets purchased by Hometown Harris before, or how were the brackets purchased?
When the South Main Street construction project was done, the new light poles that there were some old brackets from like way back when the 250th anniversary banners were up. But any of the new light poles that were put up during the construction project, the phase 2, those have new brackets on them. Those
Okay.
were part of that project.
So I know there was some discussion about Hometown Heroes looking to expand, and if they were to look to expand, more brackets would be needed for poles. And I just want to make sure that if that happens, the responsibility for purchase of those brackets, I think the town would be fair to pick up the cost of that versus the individuals in order to avoid any partiality. So.
I mean, and that can be a discussion for if there is a point when whatever poles with brackets are full during a certain calendar period that another entity wants to put banners up at the same time, it may become, and there's a hand up online too. That'll be a discussion for the board certainly to determine, but yeah, there are existing at least 18 poles with brackets on them in White River Junction. I had done some research back. I went around with a clipboard and actually counted them, but I don't have that in front of me right now. I don't remember.
We have a hand up?
There's a hand up.
Okay.
Yep. Heidi, go ahead.
Good evening, Heidi Dute, White River Junction, Vermont. I have a couple questions, if I may. Are there any brackets over by the co-op on Prospect Street or Maple Street, I mean? Does anyone happen to know?
Anyone know?
Not offhand, I don't know.
We don't know offhand.
I'm just thinking maybe put a few up there, just to break it up. And I was curious as to what material is being proposed to construct these banners.
Cedar, can you tell us what the material will be?
Yeah, so I think there was like a vinyl specification in the. Oh, well, actually, we've been in touch with Doolittle's. Hold on, let me pull up that email thread. But yeah, I think it was vinyl.
Vinyl?
So would they be able to be reused, or what is your plan after you've utilized them this year?
To be able to reuse them, that's why I'd like to get the multiple designs, so it's not just like, oh, this is just the poster from 2025 forever. We can, like, when we have the festival again, reuse these designs from like multiple years, so it's sort of just more generally about the festival and the arts in the community rather than like the festival from that specific year.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Heidi.
will point out that the policy reads, the applicant organization shall be responsible for using existing brackets, rods, and other hardware, and or provide their own such material for installation.
Yeah, I don't disagree with how it reads. I just want to make sure that if this organization does more than 18 polls and they put brackets up there.
They can't do more than 18 in one village.
Well, I realize that, but if there's more somewhere else and they have to buy brackets for them, those brackets going to be taken down. It's a foolish statement, but are they going to be taken down? Or I would think the cost of brackets would be on the town for future banners in other areas of the town of Hartford in order to make it equitable across all organizations. Otherwise, it loses the equity value of what we're trying to promote.
Okay.
I think that's a great proposal for the fiscal 27 budget. Like if you want to propose funding brackets for every eligible light pole that the town owns, then put it in as a line item for fiscal 27.
Just a follow-up comment, touching on Mary's concern about the legality of this at the state level. I did go back and look at an email chain that John forwarded to the whole select board back in June, which was, you had been communicating with them, Garrett Baxter, yeah. And he had said in June that they are meaning VLCT's model flag policy is currently in development and they're not close to finalizing it. I assume we haven't heard from him since then.
I haven't, but it's a good reminder. I could certainly
Yeah,
follow up
I'll
with him.
forward this email chain
appreciate
back
that.
to you, John, so you have it at the top. Because I think he's talking about a flag policy, but our hope was that there might be language in a flag policy that kind of is a little more specific or protective of the town than what we currently have, which is that the select board may refuse to hang the banners.
Any other questions, or I'll take a motion?
Happy to make a motion.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Hartford Select Board approve the application by Junction Arts and Media, J.A.M, to install 18 banners in the public right-of-way in downtown White River Junction for the period of January 18, 2025 until February 18, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I will second.
We have a second from Ida. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So like 5-1.
Did you vote yes?
Yeah, I voted yes.
Okay, so 5-1.
I said I would support it, so I'm going to support it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Sweet.
I think we.
Go ahead.
Oh, does that mean it passed?
Yes.
Oh, thank you guys.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.
I think we have someone here from design review. Is that correct? If you want to, I know we have you on for a quick update on the committee. If you'd like to come up and introduce yourself and you can provide the update.
I'm Denise Welch May, and I'm the chair of the design review committee. And I am here to answer questions about what it is we do, or I don't know.
If you could give us a quick summary of what you do and
Okay.
what you have been doing,
alrighty.
that'd be great.
Okay, so we're basically the first place that people who are going to be making alterations or seeking building permits or whatnot inside the design review district come before they go to the planning commission and all of that. And what we basically do is we like to see ourselves as basically an educational committee, but we review the projects with an eye toward how they fit in with the White River design plan and the guidelines, the design guidelines that were established. I don't know, it must be 10 or 15 years ago now. And so when someone brings a project before us, they generally will introduce it, and they provide the pertinent information that they have about the materials they'll be using, the plans, if there are architectural plans, and they explain color and the purpose and all of that. And then we review the plans with regards to looking at how does the project affect the streetscape of the street that it's on? Is it inside of setbacks, or, you know, protruding out when all the rest of the buildings are set back in a particular place, but this one is proposing not to? So we look at all of that. We look at the fenestration patterns on the buildings and see if it's in line with the way the streetscape looks. This is not we don't look at it with an eye toward making everything conform, but to how it basically fits in and sits in with the rest of the streetscape. And because we're really trying to foster the downtown area to feel like a place people want to come to, and that it's interesting and cared for and so on and so forth. So.
Any questions? Kim?
Yeah, and I did serve as liaison to the committee for several years prior to handing off to Brandon. I'm curious if the design review committee, if there's any appetite there for any kind of proactive projects in terms of, you know, there have been like public art projects brought before the committee that there was enthusiasm for and stuff. And I wonder if there's any, like what the temperature would be for if the design review committee were to consider like some sort of program to promote public art projects or like, you know, improving green space or plantings or things like that. Do you think there's in the role and the charge and the objectives of the committee, is anything like that something you'd consider?
Well, I think all of us that are on the committee are interested in that sort of thing. And I don't know, I mean, I originally had started the tree board in town.
Yeah.
And it was for that very reason, was, you know, way back 15, 20 years ago, the town was pretty bleak looking in terms of streetscape and, you know, plantings and stuff. And you can see now all the beautiful trees we have and how wonderful a lot of the landscaping is starting to happen. And subsequently, since that time, those guidelines for that part has been included in our guidelines for how we look at things. And I mean, like, for instance, the Northern Stage project that's going on right now, the 3 buildings, we had a lot of, I will say one of the other things is a lot of the bigger projects that come through town that are in the design review district, people will often come to us before they submit anything to show their plan and to get feedback about those very things. You know, what if we did an open green space here? What would it be like if we put benches in a park thing here? And can we do that? And that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's something that we're all really interested. That is basically what we're trying to do, is promote, you know, more walkable downtown, you know, livable spaces for people and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think, and also the history, as I know it, of White River Junction has been developing this town as a creative community, you know, a destination creative community. So I think we're looking at all of what we do with an eye toward fostering that too. So, and I think the projects that we've done and approved and gone to bat for, sometimes I do go to the Planning Commission to represent people that I think the projects are really worthwhile. You know, like the Northern Stage when they built their building there, and also the Village was another one that really brought something to the whole downtown area. So yes, I think that is what we're interested in.
Mary?
Just a quick question. Do you find that the majority of the design review takes place in and around downtown White River Junction, or is it in, you know, do you ever see or look at plans for the other villages?
We would love to do that, but right now our purview is really only the downtown.
It's a designated downtown design district.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a valuable thing. I mean, almost everyone on the board has some either career-wise or, you know, architects and people that are, you know, I own an interior design firm in downtown White River. I've been here for 30 years. It's all a part of what I do. And, you know, so I think that, yeah, we'd all love to see projects. People take advantage of that as an asset, as a design kind of charrette that people could come and ask questions about, because a lot of people just don't know, and they want to do the right thing.
Right. Thank you.
Any other question?
Does that mean that, so if someone, say from Wilder or Hartford Village, had a project that was going to go before the planning commission, they could, I thought you were limited to the.
We are limited.
Okay,
We
yeah.
have to change some sort of,
Gotcha.
you know, something
Okay,
about what.
so at this
what we're
point-
allowed to do, I guess, basically. But
Other questions? Thank you very much for coming in
Thank you.
and giving us
Yes.
this update. We really appreciate it.
And Brandon, are you the new?
I am. We haven't met in person because
No, we haven't.
the one time we met since I got on the board, I was like in France or something. So
Okay.
so I couldn't attend.
That's right. Okay, well, anyway, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it. Okay, our next item. So,
There's a hand up.
okay.
Do you want, Marcy, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Kim. This is Marcy Bartlett from Wilder. Thank you to the lady from the Design Review Committee. I believe I'm right in thinking that if a village, mine is Wilder, would want to have a design review district, you'd bring that to the appropriate body within the town, and we would want to just set guidelines of the things we wanted. Is that correct?
There's a state entity that oversees designated downtowns and designated downtown villages. And I think that is assisted very well by the planning department. So if you had any interest, I'd be happy to talk with Lori about putting you in touch with information about how villages beyond White River Junction could seek that kind of designation and get those kind of benefits.
Thanks, John. I do recall Matt Osborne at one point saying that wouldn't that be a lovely thing if you were to want something like that in something other than downtown White River, if that could be something that were accomplished. I'm not asking to jumpstart something here. I'm just inquiring in general.
I could easily
because-
take you to the website at the state that explains the program and
Sure.
what the benefits are. Sure.
Because as you drive through the town, of course, you're going to see lovely, not so lovely, lovely. Oh, they ran out of money and didn't finish. Lovely, not so lovely. You know what I'm saying? You see that everywhere in every village, but that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Okay, our next item, all right, so we have some changes to our liquor control policies and procedures. Lisa outlined these for us some time back to bring our policies and procedures in line with changes that were made by the Department of Liquor and Lottery. So Lisa's here if we have any questions about what they are. I'm sure she can answer them. And then we would move to adopt the amended liquor and tobacco control policies and procedures. So any questions for Lisa? Okay.
Thank you for updating the policy format.
Thank you
first
to
of all.
Melinda and Sherry for that. They dug for that and found it.
I thought that, and this is something on the town application part, I realize that's not part of the policy itself, but that it's come up with applications over the years, and
The additional information sheet you're referring to?
I think so, I'm trying to find.
Because we
it.
don't really have an application per se, but it's Exhibit A and what I submitted to all of you. So we've drafted that a little bit to make it a little more informative.
Yeah, let me see, so Exhibit A, yes, the one, I think one very minor suggestion I would have, so on page 2 of Exhibit A, the additional information, we distinguished where if you have any violations in the past 3 years, you put those in one part. And then the next section is if you've had any actual liquor or tobacco license violations. If no one would object, I'd strongly recommend just putting, please list any legal violations for the past 3 years. Like, is that what we're asking for there?
Like these directions, I think you all had, well, not this particular board, but the board directed us to add this time period, because the time period became an issue, and
Yeah.
I can't tell you if it was 3-4 years ago. So this was based on the guidance that the board had suggested back then. It didn't become part of the policy, I don't believe, but it seemed to come up over and over again. So we
Right.
included it on that. So
So
what
just
is it you're
to clarify,
trying
like,
to?
So if I'm an
Applicant.
applicant, sorry, thank you. Clearly, when I read the phrase, please list violations for the past 3 years, any licensee, director, owner, stockholder has been charged with. See Hartford liquor policy for details. If no violations, put none. That's basically, that's saying any, but that's like,
It could be a moving violation.
yeah. So anyway, I think just adding the word any, list any violations or any legal violations there would make it clear. And then the one below is, I like the 3-year limit. I think that's all we need to know. But then the bottom one is like ones that are violations that are specifically related to liquor and tobacco licenses, right? Like if you've had
Correct.
served an underage.
So we wouldn't necessarily know that except when the state sends them to us, and then we submit those with the renewal packet. That's how we learn of those. And so you all had put a time period on
Right.
that. Otherwise, you're going back and
No,
they've
no.
renewed their license
I'm
multiple
not,
times.
I'm not questioning.
Okay.
I like the 3 years.
I see.
I just feel like it's vague. The first section is vague unless we add any. Does anyone else see
So
what I'm
you'd
saying?
like
here?
to say something like, please list any violations, because that could
Yes.
include like I get arrested for something unrelated. to-
Yeah.
If the board's more comfortable with that, that's easy. That's an easy fix.
So
Any?
are you asking them to put liquor violations there as well then?
No,
No, that's a
literally
separate-
just add the word any.
Well, that
Please
any is liquor violations as well.
Right, but then
So-
there's also that it's kind of,
They're two separate
they're
two separate
things.
questions.
One could
I
be,
understand that.
you know, kidnapping. And this is the first section.
Would
And then
would you feel, if I were to make a friendly suggestion, any non-liquor violations?
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, I guess
That way
I've
that-
filled out these applications before and it is like.
I have as well.
It's
yes.
vague, like,
So
I think
I think if you
Please
said
list
non-liquor
related.
or non-liquor control violations.
What if it says any non-liquor / tobacco license
I'm
violation?
happy with that, yes. That way.
Because then it matches
Yeah.
it clarifies
Mhm.
That would be-
between section 1 and section 2.
Right, that would make the distinction. I'm fine. I'm very happy with that.
Alternative idea, I'm fine with that. Or could we just have the liquor question come first and then say,
Any
please list
other.
any other
Yeah.
That's fine.
as a follow-up question?
That's, I'm good with that too. I like that.
This might be a little
I think-
easier to follow.
I like
I
that.
think if we agree on principle, I think Lisa knows what we're talking about.
So you'd like to see the liquor license question just bumped up to the top of page
Yeah.
2.
I just- I
And
just
then
got a
the
great suggestion.
second, that other question would be bumped below. And would you like it to say any other?
Any other-
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
I
that's
think that
perfect.
Makes sense.
Just the way it's laid out, I had a good choice.
easy peasy.
Good choice. Good
Thank you.
suggestion.
Other questions for Lisa about these?
I really appreciate all of the changes. There was, let me see.
Lisa, this brings us into compliance with the department's
This was
changes, right?
mostly a process update,
Yeah.
not so much substantive.
Yeah.
We didn't change what the policy says per se, except as it relates to the Department of Liquor and Lottery instituting the portal. All the applications must now go through the portal. We're headed into year 3.
Yeah.
And we have to do our portion through that as well as the applicants. So it's just, we're trying to bring it in line with that. And then also, one of the things Sherry noted, because she spearheaded this entire effort, was, there's always questions about outside consumption and all of those things. So we tried to clarify that a little bit more. The fire inspections, there's now a fee related to that hadn't been, that was approved by the board this summer. So it was just clarifying some of those things, not necessarily the substantiveness. The other thing you all asked a couple other questions on December 17th. So Mary, you had a
I
situation
had-
where you were at an event, perhaps at a private home, and you asked,
Right.
someone was serving alcohol, but it wasn't necessarily a caterer per
Right,
se.
right.
So I tried to include kind of the statutory reference about when a caterer's permit would be issued. That's something that we would handle, or John would handle if we weren't given the authority to do that. In order for someone to apply for a caterer's permit or a special event permit, they used to be called bookstore and gallery. They're now called special venue, festival permits, those kinds of things. A caterer has to apply for that permit, but before they can do that, they have to have a caterer's license. We don't issue a caterer's license. Those are handled at the state level.
Okay.
And then for every event they host or they serve at in each municipality, they have to go before the local liquor control board within that municipality.
Okay.
And that's the purview there.
Right.
And there are other cases where a manufacturer might do a serving or something, and they would fall into that category as well. So in that case, I think you were just probably at a private home and they did whatever they did absent a caterer.
Right.
Lynn?
So when I went through this for the VFW, one of the things that I found was not challenging, because you helped me go through it, which I appreciate. But there's not a clear indication of what the total fees will be like for everything, because there's like $125 for the fire department we have in here. And then for the state, is there a way to better break that out?
I think one of the things Sherry did in this
Exhibit B,
packet,
yeah.
I was gonna say there's an exhibit
Right.
now with the fees, which we did not have before, but Sherry
Okay.
developed that.
I've gotten through A, and I'm looking at B, and I did look at it
It's
earlier, but
Exhibit B says liquor license municipal fee schedule, and that's just something Sherry created within our office that
we
we
got a page
would
number.
include with the packet that we send to applicants. The only question I have for all of you, and this, I'm not sure how beneficial it is. The state does now allow the town to institute a fee for anyone getting a third-class license, but doesn't have a first-class license. Right now, I don't believe we have any of those. So it's not a moneymaker. We don't collect any third-class fees whatsoever. Only the state receives those. So I'm not advocating for those, but in this process, I at least wanted to bring it to your attention. I'm not sure it's worth putting in there, but if it is something you would want to do, it doesn't have to go in the policy per se, but it could be included on this fee schedule, or you could consider it the next time you do your fee schedule.
I didn't see his hand in the first line.
Go ahead.
Just,
No, Kim first.
Because I was gonna ask about that. So when usually it's first and third class
Correct.
together, right? But there's no reference to third class on the fee schedule. So I wonder if it might make sense to, like, basically we can decide if we want to have this third class standalone fee, even though it's probably not likely to be collected very frequently, but it could be there with it just being like third class alone. First class licenses include third class. I mean, is there?
Well, if you look at, and I didn't put an exhibit number, but it's entitled the Town City Clerk Licensing Information. It's a 2-page document with a green banner that DLL put out. And I highlighted under what fees go where. And under third class fee is where this came up. I didn't even know this existed because it had never come across our desk. So I just bring it to you. It says, as of 7/1/2021, the town may add up to a $50 fee for third class license applications when they are not submitted with a first class license application. Sherry and I couldn't think of one that we have had. We have over 30, applications. So I'd leave it to you to decide. I just wanted to bring it to your attention, but that's where I found that information.
Okay.
I don't have a
think-
recommendation.
I think on this same vein is that we should establish that now versus, because we're on liquor control. If we establish it, there's going to be charged for that. We probably won't ever see it, but if we establish it now, to get it done out of the way, so we don't have to worry about it when it comes to fee schedule. So I would suggest that we add that fee in there. If there's only a third class.
So a third class only license means you're only selling spirituous liquors, no wine or beer, right?
No wine or beer, that's right.
And
that's
as we
the other-
know, as far as we can tell, there is no establishment in Hartford that only sells hard alcohol.
Not to my knowledge.
How does that work with the distillery out in Quechee Gorge Village?
They probably serve beer or wine.
They may
Well, they have
serve,
different-
they
but
may
you
serve
can
other things.
Manufacture as well, don't you have? And they have certain, there's like a ton of different permits.
There are.
I mean, I'm not against necessarily adding this fee, but I suggest we warn it for like the next meeting instead of doing it right now.
No, it's been warned in the.
It's in the packet, and we're talking about it, yeah.
I know it seems like oftentimes we are very cautious about making substantive policy changes that have not explicitly been identified as the subject of something we're going to take action on. And I don't know why we would not use that same caution tonight. That's just my thought. So what we do need to do on this is have a motion to adopt these changes. If someone wants to make a motion to add a $50 third class only license fee, they can vote on that if we'd like. Okay.
I move the select board adopt the amended select board policy number 3, liquor and tobacco control policies and procedures with the addition of a $50 third class only licensing fee.
We have a second. Or we want to break those into two separate questions.
Is it separate from, I mean, is that exhibit B considered part of the policy?
The exhibits aren't part of the policy. I labeled them that way just for ease of this discussion. I think it was just internally in our office that Sherry tried to accommodate, what people could expect for fees because we haven't had it spelled out before.
Okay, well
We have
then,
a motion.
can I second with a friendly amendment that we take that out and do a separate?
For what reason?
Do a separate motion? Well, because it's not part of the policy itself. So what we're adopting in policy number 3 is not explicitly, it's just the policy itself, not all those supporting documents.
Okay, I'll accept your friendly amendment.
Okay, so the amendment essentially is
The
the original to adopt the amended select board policy number 3, and then we can take a separate vote if there's a motion.
So there's a second.
I second it.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that motion carries. And if someone would like to make a motion regarding the fee, okay?
Make a motion, we initiate a third class licensing fee of $50 when applied for separately.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Kim. Any discussion?
Just to be a language person, but yeah, how that would appear, I'm imagining on this exhibit B, which is super helpful, but like another line, similar format, third class license application, $50 payable to town of Hartford. But then we'd have to specify only if, third class license application only applicable if you are
With no first
With
class,
no
I
first
mean, it would
class,
have to
right,
specify.
yeah.
I would probably steal the DLL's language.
Yeah,
Some version of that.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, not just
Okay.
as sort of not even amendment. It's just a clarification for discussion.
Yeah.
And
Motion still works.
That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I'm going to vote against this just because I believe that we're not really following our general procedures. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, so 5-1. All right, thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, next we'll hear from Dana on the installation of level 3 EV chargers. And we are precisely on schedule. Ready, Dana?
Sure. Just want to share my screen real quick here.
And then our packets online, it's page 46.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so Zoom has changed their, oh, here we go.
I was hoping Lisa would stick around for the other.
All right, here we go.
Let's go put ethics.
So the VTrans has been working on this National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which is a federally funded program to install level 3 chargers within 1 mile of the highway exits. The state got the funding from the feds. They identified 12 locations to site chargers. One, I think it's, now I'm blanking on this town where they have already done this as a pilot project, but now there's 11 other sites, including White River Junction, where they're looking to install chargers. I got involved because one of the things we really wanted to do is make sure that those chargers were somewhere that was consistent with the town plan. There's a lot of economic activity that tends to go along with these chargers, and you'll see them oftentimes in shops, like in Lebanon, they've got them at Walmart and stuff of that nature. So we wanted to have it kind of centrally located to benefit all of downtown. So we proposed, well, I proposed putting them in the South Main Street parking lots. I worked with the vendors. So the way that it works is all went through VTrans, but the vendors came to the town as a site host, and we spoke with them about their applications. The minimum number of charging sites were going to be 4 charging sites. I asked the vendors to kind of increase that to make us one of the state's charging hubs. So the state did take, they accepted Norwich Technologies application to install 8 fast chargers in the South Main Street parking lot. What is being proposed is that they'll be installed along the back end there near the VFW, taking up, it's 8 chargers that would take up 9 spots because 1 spot would have to be ADA compliant. So what I'm asking for tonight is for you guys to authorize John to sign a contract with Norwich Technologies, accepting us as a site host for these 8 spaces for the duration of 7 years.
Questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. I thought that I read, and maybe I didn't read it well. You said for 7 years, but I thought that in perpetuity, they were going to take care of the maintenance for these things.
Yes, so Norwich Technologies will operate and run them. The town is not putting forward any money. Everything is covered from federal funds through the state. Is going to cover 80% of the chargers, and then Norwich Technologies is required to kick in 20% plus.
So why is it 7 years versus in perpetuity? Or is that as far as they usually go under these circumstances?
Yeah, under these circumstances, it tends to be the minimum length of the contract was 5 years for the grant. They're just asking for 7 years with the assumption that they're going to continue to run them afterwards. But you know, if something happens, there are buyout clauses and whatnot in the contract.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Does the town of Hartford receive a portion of the revenue from the cost of charging?
No, but we will be taxing. These are taxable entities.
Taxable entities. How do we tax something that's in our own parking lot?
But they're privately owned. I know Rick, I've talked to Rick about this. I don't know if we have the exact details on that, but I think what we're going to do is speak with the other municipalities that are having this installed in their towns and probably follow a similar formula.
But this is on town-owned property.
But they're privately owned.
I know, but I mean, I don't see how we can tax something that's on, even if it's a privately owned thing, if it's on town property. I don't know how we're going to be able to tax something like this. I'm kind of lost on that.
Other strange items are taxed that are affixed to someone else's property, like solar arrays. They're taxed separately than the land on which they sit. Maybe the hydroelectric dam is another example of something that sits on maybe a public asset, but we can tax the infrastructure that's tied to it.
So you have no idea what kind of tax we'll get from this then.
Not at this point, no.
And so the revenue from the actual user cost goes strictly to the, where?
Norwich Technology.
Norwich Technologies.
Norwich Technologies. So you don't, when you have an electric vehicle and you, for lack of a better term, fuel up, the charge doesn't go to the power company? The fees doesn't go to the power company?
I mean, the owner of the charging station needs to pay the power company for the electricity used.
Oh, okay. So it's by way of, they get paid by way of the owner of the station.
Correct.
Okay, I'm following.
Correct.
I don't have an electric vehicle. I don't know anything about it. So that's why I'm asking a question. Okay, so yeah, I did not realize this would be a tax thing that we would get from. I'm not opposed to them. I would really love to know more information about what we're potentially getting from these, other than the people using the downtown areas while they're shopping. I'd love to know what this tax portion that we will get. Again, I'm gonna go for this. I think there's a lot left unsaid regarding this. If you could, at some point, report back to us in terms of what that tax revenue would be, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, I'd be happy to check again tomorrow with Rick and see
Yeah.
where he's gotten with that. But yeah, this is also the big draw, I think, is going to be having, minimum probably 15 to 25 cars.
I don't disagree with that
downtown.
aspect. It is taking up space, and if we're not, if the people don't shop in the downtown area, because I've seen a lot of people just hanging out in their cars over in the Walmart parking lot or next to Price Chopper, just sitting there while the vehicle's charging.
But those places are not White River Junction with all of the amenities we can afford.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
They don't have a Turkish cafe.
I just didn't know what,
Right.
what there was for, anytime we get something, I guess, in the town of Hartford, I would love to be able to know that there's something coming back to the town of Hartford, even if they don't use the amenities in the downtown area.
Dana has taken a lot of abuse from his colleagues when he describes a certain demographic of the typical user of an EV and how they bring a lot of upscale appetites for arts and entertainment and restaurants and leisure. And perhaps you'd like to say a few words about that.
Back in my day, we always just called those people granola crushers.
Well, I took enough abuse for that comment that I decided to leave it out of tonight's presentation. But sure.
Yes, thank you. Frankly, I'll just state that even if we got no extra tax revenue aside from maybe sales tax, I would be very much for this because I know that charging an EV takes, a real amount of time. It's not just a gas station stop. And so folks are going to be milling around downtown for anywhere between 25 minutes and 50 minutes, and they'll probably want to buy something. So
You can't guarantee that.
it was a very general statement, but I'm going to say thank you so much for this work. And also I wanted to mention that I hope you'll put in a good word with Norwich Technologies about the possibility for interoperability of charging sort of tips, if you will, the sort of plugs, because, and I've mentioned this before in meetings, there are now sort of 3 types of plug type, and one is the older one on the most cost-effective EV, the Nissan Leaf, and some older ones like that. And then there's the one that most cars use now, which is a standard now, and it's very popular. So most chargers are going to have this, which is the CCS, I think it's called. And then there's the Tesla one, at which heretofore has been a proprietary to Tesla, but now is going to be open source. And it turns out like most major automakers are now moving to that one. So all that to say, if we're going to have these chargers there for 10, 20 years or more, we're going to see the type of plug change. And so it'd be good to have them be able to change them out as the trends go. And just to put in a plug to have at least one of the old type so that people with Nissan Leafs can charge. It's an access issue.
Yeah, and I have checked the RFP They do, they prefer at least one CHAdeMO style, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's required. So I'll check with Norwich Solar to see what their thoughts are on that.
So you can buy an adapter to charge your vehicle anywhere?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like your Tesla, you don't have to fill that up at strictly a fast charger, Tesla fast charger station?
No. So when you purchase a Tesla, you get you get the old school chargers for like the level 2 chargers, like what we have here.
Right.
But then if you want to buy one to fast charge it at another fast charger, you need to buy those units, and I think they're like $300. So it gets expensive, but they do have interchangeability.
Yeah. The only problem I see with Brandon's idea is that these things getting ripped off if they're there at the station for people to swap out.
Oh, no. You have your own charger. You carry it with you.
Oh,
They're not-
okay.
They're not.
All right, I see. All right.
Other questions, Dan?
What kind of revenue does this generate for Norwich Technologies, do you know?
I'm not sure, and I'll be honest with you, like, there's not a huge profit margin in these. I do know that. I know that there were 4 companies looking at participating in this program, and there was a pretty well-established company that I had spoken to, and they actually decided not to apply to the program because they weren't sure they could make it pencil out.
So I'm sorry, the chargers that we currently have, are they still working?
The level 2s, yeah.
There, okay. So explain to me, a dummy when it comes to electric cars, what's the difference between a level 1 and a level 2 chargers?
And level 3.
So
there's 3 chargers?
Yeah, so a level 1 is typically called a trickle charger because it's basically you're plugging into a 110 outlet and you're getting maybe 1 or 2 or 3 miles an hour of worth of electricity put into the car.
Is that what we have here?
No, this is a level 2.
Okay.
This provides about 20 miles per hour worth of charge to a vehicle.
Are these 220 then?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And then the level 3s are will charge a vehicle 200 to 300 miles within like 45 minutes to an hour.
So these are all going to be level 3 chargers that we're
Yeah,
looking at. So
these are all level 3 chargers.
okay. The ones that we have down there now, you say are level 2s.
Yep.
What would it take to upgrade those to level 3 charger?
Not happening. It's not. They're not compatible. The whole back end is different. Like Lanny, like it's like to the point where these are going part where they're going because there's stage 3 power there because there's power lines. Like they need that level of juice and all the back end equipment has to be there to support it. So it's a totally different power tower once the power comes down from the lines.
I never could understand why electric car companies didn't make their batteries interchangeable. I guess just blows my mind. I'm sorry, it's another discussion.
You know, we can talk about that offline.
Yeah.
It's probably ego with some of the manufacturers. I don't know.
Brandon, and then maybe we'll take a motion.
Just very roughly things I've heard about the cost. To put a level 2 charger in is about a $500 part and, $500 to $1,000 of electrical work. It's about the same as putting in your dryer outlet. A level 3 charger is about a $30,000 part and $30,000 to $40,000 of electrical equipment from the electric company. And that's if you have 3-phase power available to you very close. Obviously, it would be more if you didn't. So
I think, I'm not sure who asked the question, but is this something the town would get into purchasing power chargers? Is that?
I don't think so. It would be a huge investment. And I mean, this program right here, the state's putting in 1.2 million and Norwich is putting in probably, if it's 20% match, around 300,000. So this is like a $1.5 million bank.
Who owns the level 2 chargers that are in that lot?
We do.
Okay, so we do see revenue from that.
We do see revenue from that. Yes, we do. Those were grant funded. They do pay for themselves plus a little extra. It makes sense, I think, we have some funds for additional level twos as well. And they're great for if somebody comes and they're spending a long evening with friends or something like that. Because the other thing is too, with the level 3 chargers, is typically they try to move you on after you get done charging. So,
So is this something that the police are gonna have to police?
No.
So if somebody exceeds their charge time, I mean, they're using up that spot for somebody else. What is that?
Yeah, but the companies also have a way of forcing an email to people and saying, you need to move or we're gonna pay you charge you an idling fee.
Oh, okay, that's.
So, I mean, I know I've gotten emails before when I've been charging in the Tesla. And I remember distinctly one time just telling my kids to grab their pizza and hustle. And we ran across the parking lot.
Is it detrimental then? Definitely to.
It was like 75 cents or $1 a minute.
Oh, so definitely, okay.
Yeah, I
Cool.
mean, they hustled.
I just want to, yeah, it's good. I mean, it's great to have these slots. I just hate to see vehicles parked in there, so.
Okay, we have a hand up online, and if I take a motion and then.
Okay, go ahead, Heidi.
Good evening, Heidi Butte, White River Junction, Vermont, once again. I may be naive in asking this, but as you all know, well, most of you know, I have a pet peeve with that parking lot. I asked for those signages to be put up for control of that lot, especially since a lot of the apartment buildings downtown do not have any or adequate parking for their tenants. So this is where this question is going. Would it be wrong for the town to have a contract with them to lease the property in which they're proposing to take up 8 to 9 spaces?
John or Dana, anything?
I'm not sure I understand.
Can you rephrase that, Heidi?
Yeah, there'll be a site host agreement, which is what I'm asking the select board to authorize
I
John
think she's
to.
getting at, is there a way to make them rent those 9 spaces? I think that's what she's trying to get at for the usage.
I think that, given the tight margins, the companies were uncomfortable with doing that. So that's why we went with the taxation.
That's why.
And
yeah.
also the benefit that we're gonna get through the economic development, I think is gonna make it a financial plus for the town.
I'm really supportive of this. I just really question that tax part of it. I just really wonder what it is. It'd be nice to have that information. I know you don't have it now. I really like to have that come back to us.
Yeah, and again, I can ask Rick tomorrow. We've had this conversation. Rick was with us when I met with Norwich Technologies, Green Mountain Power, the DPW. We all had a powwow in the parking lot, so he has been part of this conversation.
Heidi, did you have, is that your question, or do you have anything else?
Well, I also would like to know, how do I say this? So it's within the TIF district. So I understand that the TIF district pays most of our tax and stuff to the state. How would we even see a penny out of these? That's why I proposed leasing the 8 or 9 parking space lots, just like I've made proposals to town officials about different apartment building owners leasing spots for their tenants to park there. I'm just trying to figure out how the town can gain profit from allowing different establishments to utilize municipal parking lots. Because when I've gone downtown on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, it's very difficult to find a spot, to run into a restaurant to pick up your takeout food.
Yeah, that's where I think Dana is speaking about this tax we're getting back. But it's the unanswered question of what the tax is. But I think that's how we're going to see something out of this, is that the town's going to see something in terms of, even if they don't shop downtown, we're going to get that tax portion. Again, that's an unanswered question, but.
And
we're
maybe
looking
the
at that.
Friday, Saturday night does not conflict with the average charge time for an EV.
I'm sorry.
Maybe the average Friday and Saturday night does not occur at the same Friday night activity in White River Junction does not occur at the same time as people are mostly charging up their EVs during a visit through town.
So if we,
If I may, but you're still not gonna want people blocking those spots to possibly utilize the charging stations. So therefore, there's 8 or 9 spots taken away right there. That's,
Well, Dana has said that there'll be penalties for idlers by virtue of increased costs being paid by the users.
But non-electric vehicles.
yeah,
But
for non.
but what you said is it wouldn't conflict with people
Oh, I
utilizing
see.
charging.
I see. what you're
But it
saying.
would
I see.
still be, if you can't just park a regular gas vehicle there, because then you're blocking the opportunity for
Right.
someone to actually charge their vehicle.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be difficult either. I'm
No.
just trying to get answers to understand.
And I do have Matt Osborne's parking counts, which he does on a quarterly basis here. And the most cars that he's ever counted parked in that parking lot is 139, and there's 189 spots. So there does seem to be ample parking down there. And that was during a night when there was something happening at Northern Stage. So he believed that that's why that was happening.
So it does seem, and Brendan's next, but it does seem we're likely to see some revenue, maybe directly from the tax, and Rick's gonna get us some information on that. Is it just like a property tax, or like what is that?
Yeah.
And then there is maybe less quantifiable the idea of people charging, and since it takes an hour, they're gonna push on that. Brandon, and then we're gonna go to Brandon, and then
Just a quick question as to, this lot is going to be one will be metered, right? With, no, this is not a metered, lot. Okay. That clears it up. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I just lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Yeah.
You ready for a motion? Okay, I move that the Hartford Selectboard authorize the town manager to sign a site host agreement with Norwich Technologies to lease up to 9 parking spaces in the downtown South Main Street parking lot for level 3 fast chargers for the duration of 7 years.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the question. I mean, this motion actually says to lease 9 parking spaces. Are they leasing 9 parking spaces?
For $0.
I guess, I guess it's how you want to define it. That's how I did define it there. But essentially they have a site host agreement to use those spaces. I said
Is the site host agreement part of the packet?
That wording is not right then, is it?
It's more like to use up to 9 parking.
Yes.
To utilize up to,
Yeah.
not lease.
Because I don't think we saw the actual site.
I agree with
So
you.
we'll update with a friendly amendment to change that to use or utilize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I seconded.
We have a second from Kim. Discussion, anyone?
Just one. So I'm gonna try to piggyback a little bit on what Heidi was asking. We're going to implement parking meters downtown, okay? And we have, we're going to get someone to monitor parking by way of a parking attendant, or is there a way to establish a fine for people laying up in those parking spaces that are not charging? That's, I think, what Heidi's getting at, is that if a internal combustion vehicle utilizes a parking space, denying the ability for someone to fast charge.
Or even an EV is parked there but not charging.
Right. Is that something that the parking enforcement officer can enforce them to?
I don't see why that couldn't be rolled into the ordinance that Lori is going to be working on to implement the parking enforcement.
Yeah, because I can't see where, if you got a big event at the VFW, you got a part event happening at the theater, it's a nice night, you have people downtown. I can see where that lot would get sucked up with a lot of spaces. And I'm not saying that it ever has, but there's always contingencies.
There's actually a term for that, Lanny. It's called getting iced, when an internal combustion engine vehicle takes up an EV spot.
Is that what it's called? Iced? Internal combustion forever.
That would take an ordinance, certainly something we can look.
Well,
at.
we're going to be
There's
looking at an
not-
ordinance, so we
Yeah.
can certainly ask in order to fold that in.
Yeah,
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
We'll take our break now, because usual time, and when we get back, we've got to do the ethics and conflict of interest, which might generate some discussion. So we'll take 5 and see you back here.
Yes, there's things to sign if you'd like.
Let's get back to it.
All right, Nick, just let me know when we're good.
Okay. All right, so we're back from the break. Our next item is consider amending the town's conflict of interest policy to make sure that we are compliant and control our grants. So I will turn that over to John.
And that's basically the bottom line, Mr. Chair, which is that we've had the conflict of interest policy in place for a number of years. And it was part of a review that the state recently performed on operative town documents and policies and procedures. And through that audit, the state notified the town that the current language of our conflict of interest policy does not satisfy a recent update to the Code of Federal Regulations. And so they have identified a pretty straightforward fix that could be made to the conflict of interest policy with minimal changing of words. But the key provision is that where in the past the town had some latitude on whether to enforce the conflict of interest policy and when to discipline people for violating it, now there must be consequences for violation of the policy. So in the 2 sets of 4-page documents for your comparison, you can see that a couple of words have been added, but the key change is that on page 4, the phrase may take action to discipline has been changed to must take action to discipline. There still are those several options for imposing discipline, but some action must be taken if there's been a determined conflict of interest violation. So
basically going from may to shall.
May to shall. Gail and Lori notified me of this, that they had been in meetings with state audit folks who have identified this as a real problem. So I did take a stab at drafting these minor language revisions and submitted them to the state. And they have given us a letter saying, yes, if this were adopted by the select board, it would put the town back into full compliance, both with state and federal regulations.
Questions for John on the changes? Kim?
Since we are doing some of these minor edits, could this policy be put in the template?
Yes, I anticipated you asking that. The answer is an emphatic yes. It was simply a quick and dirty way to address this in time for tonight's meeting.
Okay, and then if you're doing that, I think most of the policy is pretty gender neutral, but it still uses the term chairman instead of chairperson. So if there's any of those, I would just keep an eye out for that, but I appreciate how most of it is.
Yeah, it was most recently revised just 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Yeah.
In a similar vein, legislative practice is to use shall as opposed to must.
Okay. Yep.
Must, so.
Sure. I'm sure there'll be no problem with that use of words.
Other questions for John about this? If not, happy to take a motion. Yeah.
Do I need to make any mention of the?
I think you can state your understanding that there'd be some stylistic changes as we've discussed, the change of the word must to shall, and to conform with the gender neutral, and to place this in the format of the accepted town policy template.
All right. Mr. Chair, I move that the select board.
Because we will be needing to supply the minutes along with the document. So
Okay.
yes, please be specific there.
Okay, I move that the select board adopt the attached proposed amendment to the town's conflict of interest policy. And
say like with further amendments.
With further amendments, including gender neutral descriptors and adding the formatting of our approved policy template.
Yep.
And replacing
Oh,
must with shall.
And also using the word shall instead of must in the new language.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the
We
motion.
have a second from Mary. Any discussion?
What I will do, of course, just to meet our deadline of middle of the month, is take signatures on this document and incorporate those into the updated template. So,
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone.
thank you.
All right,
Yes.
the next item is adopting a municipal code of ethics investigation and enforcement and appointing a town liaison and complaint recipient. John?
Yes, this sounds similar, but it's a little different. Back in the summer of 2024, the state legislature adopted a municipal code of ethics, as it's been described as a top-down, one-size-fits-all state municipal code of ethics. So it's a state act applying to municipalities. As required by the state law, the town has already posted on the town's website and elsewhere the state's municipal code of ethics and a whistleblower protection notice patterned on the VLCT model document. In addition to having done that, according to the state law, the towns all across Vermont must now first adopt a municipal code of ethics investigation and enforcement ordinance. And a draft has been supplied in your packet. And then also have the select board designate an employee or one of its own members to serve as a liaison to the State Ethics Commission. In addition, the town must assign a municipal officer or or body as its designated complaint recipient to receive complaints alleging violations of the municipal code of ethics. Later this year, there will be mandated training for the ethics policy that's been put into place. And the officers who must receive this training include select board members, the town manager, and the members of the town's quasi-judicial bodies. For example, the Board of Civil Authority, Board of Abatements, and other bodies that make quasi-judicial rulings. So that's why this has been presented tonight. I've given you the 54-page act that puts all this into motion. And there's lots of interpretation of that act by both the State Ethics Commission and the Vermont League of Cities and Towns that has helpfully, again, provided quick toolkits on what the towns need to do to come into compliance and the proposed ordinance, which is before you. Just tonight, while looking this over, I see that there are a couple more places where we needed to insert a particular term and X out other alternatives. And so I've done that in the version on the table here. In other words, there's several places where there's a reference to municipal manager, municipal administrator, or chair of the legislative body, which the town needs to select one of those. And so I've done those as to municipal manager in all those instances, because this is clearly written to give both an option for a town like ours with a municipal manager, smaller towns with municipal administrators, or even smaller towns where the legislative body themselves conduct the business of the town. So.
Yeah. I see within this is a ethics code, municipal code of ethics. But within this, I see the conflict of interest mentioned. So they are two in one.
So the term is used within it. My only point was that we're adopting the two things for different purposes at different initiatives. One by virtue of an audit that identified us as non-compliant for grant purposes. And this is a state municipal code that's been imposed on all municipalities. And we must adopt enabling legislation, which sets up a process to enforce it.
When we use the term ethics, though, we all have different ideas of what ethics are. So, I mean, in reading this over, there's a lot to it. Okay. I'm not trying to call anything out, but like when I read on page 103, under of the PDF, under chapter 60 Municipal Code of Ethics, under 1991 definitions, under number 9, it says illegal order means a directive to violate or assist in violating a federal, state, or local law. I would think that would be to the state of Vermont.
I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, you don't have the PDF. It's.
Yeah.
Let me just.
We're looking at the act itself now.
Yeah, it's page 36 of the 54-page document.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, John. You're not.
Sure.
You're
I'm
looking
following
on.
along in analog form.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So under number 9, it says illegal order means a directive to violate or assist in violating a federal, state, or local law as they pertain to the state of Vermont. It seems like there seems like there's language missing there.
Well, I can't speak to the legislature and the act that they've adopted. What's really before us is how to implement this 54-page document, which is already in existence and already is law in Vermont, by adopting a local ordinance, 4 pages long, really 3 if you look at it, to just put into place a procedure to implement state law on municipal ethics if and when a conflict of interest or improper behavior is identified.
So what I'm getting at though is if someone goes across a river and does an unethical act, it means nothing because it was done across the river. But their conduct is still unbecoming because they were a select board member of the town of Hartford, or they were a member of a quasi-judicial member of the body of Hartford.
Well, put it this way, the state also established an ethics commission, which is open to providing guidance, answer questions of municipalities as they might arise. So if we were ever confronted with something that we couldn't quite figure out how to handle, that's a resource that we would certainly look to, because it's their job to oversee the implementation of the state's ethics code all across the state. And there's even forms that
Right,
VLCT has
that's-
provided so that we can ask for opinions, advisory opinions.
But that
about
ends
these things.
150 yards from here at the Connecticut River.
Yeah.
You know, that's the point I guess I'm getting at. It's because we're so close, and all the border towns in Vermont have that same issue. If you know, I could go over there and, you know, to Lebanon, to a meeting in Lebanon and cause a ruckus.
Well, that's states' rights and local control. You're asking for the Congress to pass a national law then.
I know, again, we cannot change what the state has done. It just seems like there should be more power to the select board itself to handle.
Which is what we had done for many years. We had our own ethics policy.
Right.
But as soon as the legislature passed and the governor signed that new act, Act 171, it nullified all municipal codes of ethics and forced us all now to start over again with the state's one-size-fits-all code.
Right. And yeah. Okay.
Brandon?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, I just wonder whether you could explain your view for the peanut gallery, which may or may not include this board. Your view of the difference between these roles that you've outlined here in the recommendation, the town liaison to the State Ethics Commission versus the designated ethics complaint recipient, like sort of how each
Well,
of those would play out.
Put it this way, I don't think there's any magic to who the select board would want to appoint. I simply picked or recommended that the town manager serve as the liaison to the Ethics Commission, simply because I'm the town's ambassador, for lack of a better word, to all kinds of state agencies, and would be comfortable performing that function. I also had recommended the HR director as the recipient of complaints, knowing that some of that role would be to receive the complaint and to investigate the complaint. Given that that involves some degree of sensitivity and personnel information, I would think that that would be a natural fit for the HR director. But those are just recommendations for you to deal with as you see fit. One thing is clear, that the recipient cannot be also the liaison.
My concern of using the HR director, though, if there is a ethical concern performed by the HR.
Oh, yeah. And there's a
administrator.
provision by which, if that designee of the complaint recipient is the subject of a charge, then the town manager would then be authorized to do the investigation in lieu of that person.
So
that's how I read the
in
draft
large
ordinance.
companies, there is an ethics officer that sees that is separate from a HR person.
Mhm. I don't believe the town has an ethics commission.
I'm uncomfortable with the HR manager being in that position for ethics.
Okay. One alternative might be the chair or another member of the select board.
I would lean in that fashion. I would prefer that. Kim, you
Other thoughts? Good.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if there might be some sort of like alternative, like if there was, like could that designee be the town's HR director or the select board chair? The same thing with the town manager or the select board chair or something like that? Like, is that a acceptable?
That's a good question. I don't know if you can appoint in the alternative. It does ask that a person or position, I presume, be appointed or designated.
I mean, I think in that.
What would trigger one versus the other if you were to nominate or appoint two people? Would it just be whoever's available that day would step up, or it would be a primary person and an alternative in the event that that person is not available?
For me, I think it would be, a potential complainant is a kind of vulnerable position to be in. And so in my opinion, it would be whoever the complainant is most comfortable.
Then you get to the problem of inconsistent approach. So you might start picking favorites about, this doesn't involve the HR director, or this doesn't involve the select board chair, but I think I'm going to get a better audience by selecting this person.
Well, I mean, does this, forgive me if it's in here and I didn't notice it, but does this document doesn't actually lay out what the procedure is for the investigation, right? Like, is there?
There actually is a little bit.
I guess my point is, I don't know that there's any expertise, and those positions could change. The select board chair will change periodically. The HR director as a position could change periodically.
Oh, sure.
So
that's why you do the position, not the person, right?
Exactly. But it is also why, in a world of, like, I would rather err on the side of giving a complainant an option to go a pathway that they're more comfortable with. I mean, in fact, I mean, that can happen anyway, you know, like, I don't anticipate that there will ever be some sort of direct complaint toward any one person, but there could be. And, you know, same, like I know even like in the police department hierarchy, there's, you know, there's the procedures for complaints that go to this person. And if that's not, you know, like there are options to go to other, you know, up to the top, which in this case.
Like a grievance procedure of
Right,
some kind, yeah.
exactly. And so if you're the liaison and it's not appropriate to appoint you as, or the town manager, whoever that is, hopefully it's you for a very long time, John, that I feel like that pathway, and I guess I'm curious if other municipalities or if the state has come to this or do we know what other municipalities are doing?
I don't. It's early days, but it certainly, I'm sure a number have already adopted an ordinance. Some probably won't have even heard about this until reminded by the state that they're lagging behind. But just to get to this other question, the ordinance does provide that all municipal ethics complaints must be directed to the designated recipient. The designated recipient will conduct a prompt, thorough, and impartial investigation of all municipal ethics complaints, and confidentiality will be protected to the extent possible. Any municipal ethics complaints directed against the recipient must be directed to the town manager.
Lenny and then Mary.
John answered my
Lenny
question.
and then Brandon. One thing first, John, in the act, did it say something like all municipalities must adopt this by date certain? I'm just wondering what our time frame is.
That's a good question. I don't think the world would come crashing down if we didn't act tonight.
Yeah.
For example, I've been here for more than a year and I haven't heard anything about any ethics complaints being submitted based on our existing ethics policy. Let's just be hopeful that that is the case for 2 more weeks, right? And then the 60 days that would be necessary to watch it become law.
Right. Lenny?
By the very nature of the position, human resources involved with hiring and firing, I think would be right in the crosshairs of potential ethics complaints. That's why I am very leery of appointing an HR director to be, by their very nature, they're ones that would be accused, could be potentially accused of ethics.
And if they were accused, again, the town manager would handle the complaint, be the recipient.
Right.
If that person was the subject of the complaint. I had the same thinking, but in reverse. I thought if anybody understands confidentiality, it's going to be the HR director.
But what I'm getting at is that it would seem to me that that person, I like the idea of using the chair, okay, the select board chair. And then that person, whoever the chair may be, he or she, has the ability to deal with it themselves or contact whoever's sitting in the town manager's seat, or has the ability to contact outside counsel, because that's their purview to do so. And that they have that authority. Let's face the chain of command here. The chain of command in the town of Hartford is the citizens, the select board, the town manager. So we would receive complaints against whoever's sitting in your seat or whoever's sitting in seats below that, because the buck stops not here, but at the taxpayers. So
But I do think that what will be required is that a position be identified. I can ask VLCT for guidance as to whether it can be one position with an alternative being another position, or not. But I do think you can't have the whole select board be named the recipient, right?
Like I say, if you just had the chair,
right,
then that chair has the ability to take many actions beyond that.
Right.
Once it's reported to the chair, they are mandated to act upon that. How they act upon that is in their best interest, or it's in their wheelhouse. I think that's what I would like to see go forward.
Brandon?
I very much appreciated the comments from Kim and from Lanny here. I just wanted to offer something that could be a potential solution here to both situations. As I read through this, I thought back to what the material we were given in October when the clerical staff submitted a petition to unionize. And my thought is, if we could make the recipient of the complaints as a duo, a joint recipient, one recipient could be the HR director and the other would have to be a member of this clerical union, or if any, let's say it's a complaint against a member who is unionized with another union in town, it would be a member of that union.
Then we're talking about.
So it would be either, my proposal is that, that those two would be the recipient of the complaint, and they would either choose to issue a joint report or they would choose to issue separate reports.
I just think that muddies the water, because you have, for lack of a better term, you have rank and file that are union presidents of the different unions we have attend. You have an officer who's a patrol officer who's, I don't know who that is, but the union president. You have a firefighter who's the union president. You have a, I don't know what, for lack of a better word, for Parks and Recs person as the union representative for there. And I think they don't have much authority within their position to act upon a complaint. And if they are a lower tiered employee, there could potentially be some backlash.
Further
from that as
follow-up is today, just today, we received like the initial correspondence from AFSCME talking about future discussions of future bargaining possibilities. And one of the things that they said in the letter is that meanwhile, before we go forward with such discussions, please note that, you know, any additional duties or change of duties would have to be negotiated. So you're talking about adding a duty to somebody who is part of a union that's just told us not to add any duties to their portfolio without negotiating them. So that is a can of worms.
Plus, we've got, how many unions do we have in the town? I mean, we're looking at 4.
I think we've got 3, and now
Potential
this
4,
maybe a fourth,
potential
yeah.
for a 4th union. That to me is really muddying the waters. Whereas, well, if you had it with the chair of the select board, it seems like it's a lot more cut and dry.
Brandon, first I have just a couple thoughts.
There's also a hand up just when you're ready.
So one thing I'd like to know, John, if you can find out from like BLCT is, can the complaint recipient appoint a designee? Because the complaint recipient, I think you mentioned, it says in there, is also supposed to conduct the investigation. And the chair of the board may not have any experience conducting investigations, so a designee might be helpful. I also think in just terms of moving this forward tonight, we can adopt the municipal code, and we can hold off on adopting the liaison and the complaint recipient till a future meeting, or we can just hold off on adopting or naming the complaint recipient if we think that John should be the liaison.
Well, that's a good point. There's nothing in the draft ordinance that identifies who the recipient or liaisons are.
Yeah. So I think that might be a way to move it forward, at least until the next meeting. We can just hold off on that. So I would like to know sort of the idea of appointing a designee, just because it's not just like the complaint comes to the chair and the chair then refers it to the appropriate party. It's like the recipient of the complaint does an investigation. And that's, you know, you may not have a chair who has a background HR investigation.
Understandable, that's fine, but as the chair also has the authority to contact legal
Well,
for assistance.
to contact legal, yeah, and I think part of it's the designee, can they name like an attorney at the legal counsel? I think that's just that's
Yeah.
sort of a quick question I'd just
Mhm.
like to know. And I think we can move forward with adopting the code and then making something to appointments at the next meeting once we have a little more information or people have their thoughts.
I'm with that. I'll go with that.
Okay, Brandon, how does it?
Thank you. I would adopt the code tonight if given the chance, and also I would nominate the town manager to be the liaison to the state committee. Just in a quick response to the idea that it's fully muddied the waters to involve unions. I did in my recommendation say that very clearly that someone from this particular clerical union would be the designee unless the complaint was regarding a person who is covered by another union, in which case a member of their union would be the designee.
We had a hand up, I think.
Yes.
And then we can.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Thank you for allowing me to speak once again. Heidi Duta, White River Junction, Vermont. I have a couple questions and a couple clarifications necessary, if possible. Lanny made a very good observation as far as HR possibly not being the go-to person for complaints, because as Lanny stated, how do I want to say this without going the wrong direction? You can't have someone that's hiring and firing, and then what if that person can't make a judgment call that is impartial, or there's a conflict because maybe it's within their department. I think that I know you guys are going to be looking into more information. Even if one or two people are designated, coming from a union standpoint, grievances, you have a step 1, you have a step 2, then it usually goes out of the building. Now, where would these go if it had to go out of the building, and how would it be handled, I guess I'm asking?
The decision of the legislative body may be reviewable by the Vermont Superior Court pursuant to Rule 75 of the Vermont Rules of Civil Procedure. An enforcement action taken against an employee may be appealed in accordance with the municipality's personnel policy.
So is this only for employees, or is this also for like anyone seated on a board, commission, committee within the town? I mean, I guess
Yes, there's 3 categories of enforcement. One is enforcement against elected officers. One is enforcement against appointed officers, and one is enforcement against employees.
So I guess my question would be, should, as Kim said, or whomever made that comment about possibly having more than one, could there be like a way that, say, the town manager was the official individual that took all the complaints, but what happens if the complaints were made upon the town manager?
Yes, there's a provision for that as well, Heidi, and it requires that some other person investigate and not the town manager. So it's set up so that if the subject of a complaint holds one of these positions, they are conflicted out and some other person steps in to pursue the process. I can't speak to the exact circumstances, but that's how this is set up in general. And I guess one way to avoid that is to have the town manager designated as the complaint recipient and someone else as the liaison to the state.
Seemed to me like the way we get out of this thorniness is have you be the complaint recipient and designate someone else, a board member, like chair, whoever,
right,
or someone else to be the liaison.
Mhm.
And I think that would take us there. Right?
I just like a point of clarification, if I might, from the town manager. Because we've talked about the HR director here. Does the human resource director have hiring and firing abilities, or does
No.
that all, so that all is yours?
It's the town manager. The town manager has hiring and firing authority in
You
town.
have the final say.
That's
in
it.
hiring. Okay, that's
Certainly, the town manager would be consulting the HR director throughout the process and
Okay,
perhaps
but-
legal counsel, but it's the buck stops here, so
final
to speak.
decision is with you. Okay,
Yeah.
That's what I want to make sure.
So if I may, can I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
Are the individual or individuals alleging the complaint, are they able to do it anonymously, or does it have to be like a sit-down session or written out like notice that could be traceable back to them if something were to like go down that route?
It's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
In the whistleblower thing, did they mention?
I can look at that. I don't know the answer as I sit here for sure.
Okay.
I could ask
Generally-
both VLCT and the Ethics Commission about that.
I think it would be helpful if we got, thanks Heidi, if we got clarification on that. I would also have the board think about the idea of naming John as the complaint recipient, and then we could decide on a liaison. Tonight, I would suggest we just adopt the code and leave those two questions for a further meeting once John has additional.
And the good news from that approach is that at least we start the 60 days ticking.
Yeah. Thoughts on that?
Fine with that.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a motion. In our list of motions, it would just be to adopt the municipal code, and we'll table those appointments to a future meeting.
Yes.
With some additional information.
Mhm.
Ready?
I move that the Hartford Select Board adopts the attached draft municipal code of ethics investigation and enforcement ordinance as amended.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
The motion should not say as amended because it's the first one we've got.
Friendly amendment suggested, yeah.
I'll second and then discussion. I mean, you said there has been some amendments from what is posted in the agenda packet.
Yeah, I'm not talking about an official amendment. I'm talking about cleaning up a couple of portions from the prior draft. If you want to call those an amendment, you can, but it need not be described as an amendment because you'll be signing the first version of the town's ordinance in this area. So maybe syntax or.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, John.
Sure.
And we'll look to get some more info on
Yes.
that and discuss the complaint recipient. I think we can find our way through this without a whole lot of difficulty.
Yep.
Okay, so the next thing is to review and approve the select board calendar cycle for 2025. So that's on page 153.
There's actually two different cycles.
Yeah.
One is called the Draft Annual Select Board Calendar Cycle, which is a colorful document that originally Kim put together, which recites all of the seasonally recurring activities that a board should follow if it wants to stay on top of performing its desired duties throughout the year. The next document is just a list of select board meeting dates for 2025.
Questions on this for John? Otherwise, we think it looks good.
These are living documents, of course.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what's the difference between like, I'm trying to draft and select for calendar cycle. Like there's two of the colorful ones. Are those the same?
One has the words January, February, March, April, May.
Yeah.
That's the annual select board cycle. The next has kind of a chart,
Okay. I
which
think
has
but there's two of
dates.
I think it's just a duplicate. Just a duplicate. Okay.
Okay.
There's actually three, but we only need two of them.
I see,
Okay.
I see.
But
The
they're
one question I have with regard to the select board meeting schedule is that there is a gap at present for select board meetings between February 18th and March 18th, with the exception of the organizational meeting on March 6th, which is usually a light meeting and there's some discussion of committee assignments. So in terms of normal order and staying on top of our work, it has been recommended that the select board pick another meeting date between February 18th and March 18th, perhaps February 25th or March 11th.
So
different boards would be involved, of course.
So I agree. But it brings up what we were discussing just barely. When are we going to have this ethics training stuff take place?
Yep.
That's going to be another
September.
date.
September is the deadline by which it can be done. I don't know that they've set up the availability for it yet, but I can check on that and
We've got to pencil that
give
in
you
to our
opportunities
schedule,
for sure.
'cause,
Yep.
You know, we should have, and yeah, that's definitely something that we have to have. sooner
And
than
I
later
also
for
need
new
to talk
members.
about that with all the other quasi judicial boards to get them on board as well.
Right. And then I'm asking Jim and Mike, they've been around the longest. What else is there for like mandatory board training that new board members would have to get under their belts, you think, moving forward first thing?
We really haven't.
I don't think there are mandatory ones. There's
No.
definitely highly recommended ones just through the VLCT program.
There's a select board institute, which is kind of an initial primer for new select board members.
You know, I agree with Lane. These are living documents and they're going to be changed. This does sort of spell out kind of like the big things we're looking at over time, but they can always be amended. I mean, looking at it tonight, unless there's something that jumps out at us as being
I just
bizarre,
really
you
love
know.
to see a training date for new board members,
Yeah.
the board, the complete board, I guess.
And I mean,
You
that's,
know,
in
that'd
some
be,
sense, that's for the new board in March to
Yeah.
decide, you know, I mean, we're gonna have a new board, we'll have a new chair. probably,
And there
and
are-
everything else, you know.
but if we pencil it in,
And
if we pencil
there are
it
ones
in,
in there for select board training, board vote, yeah.
Yeah, they always do it in March,
You can use it for those.
essential.
Oh, yeah, select board organizational meeting, board development training in March is in there.
And in April and in June and in July, so you can delegate.
that's fine, but we don't have anything on the calendar. That's,
Yeah, I mean, part of it's gonna be like, what is the training, who's gonna provide it, when's everyone available? I mean,
well,
if we have it in there under those occurring under those months, I mean, I think that's a good directive for the board to.
It's
make sure
it's
that
a tickler. It's a
done.
reminder for us to do these things.
Yeah.
what's nice about this schedule though, is that it gives us an opportunity to take a vacation and miss a meeting. And that's what's nice, is to be able to figure out, you know, in
Yeah.
between where we're going, in between meetings, where does we want to take a day off?
No, I mean, I agree with
That's
that.
what's nice about having this calendar. That's why if we're having important things such as, like I say, select board training, the select board essentials kind of stuff, we should all be here for that, because we could all use refreshers. You know,
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know that we can just pencil in a date yet. Kim?
I mean, I will encourage the new board in March to delegate someone to do those kind of training coordinator that I was very happy to serve as before. But because like you don't know when either a workshop or a facilitator is going to be available, that's when that's the coordinating part. is
we
figuring out-
can go over that internally, and then we can do our own in-house training on like Robert's Rules of Order or select board essentials or stuff. We can do some of the stuff in-house.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
true.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've got enough training that we can get off of VLCT that we can just go over as a whole board and refresh that. I mean, there's tons of things that VLCT has put out that we could just, but the idea is to gather together and discuss it and talk about it. That's key, because if we go offline and individually do that, we don't get as much as if we do it in mass.
I agree, and I think the new board and the new leadership board in March can, it's up to them to kind of handle that out. I mean, for tonight's business, I think this looks pretty good.
My question was, I do think it wouldn't be a bad idea to pencil in the actual budget sessions for the end of the calendar year.
Mhm.
I mean, you still approve this thing, but, or we can approve this calendar. But
So more than budget cycle, but,
yeah, like,
more.
well, on the like actual calendar.
oh, I'm sorry,
calendar,
this one, yes,
like,
okay.
Pencil those in, obviously, even just the save the date ones or
Mhm,
something. I don't
mhm.
think it's too far out to do that because, you know, we see it could.
Yeah, I
People
agree.
do travel in
Yeah,
December.
we have a lot of two-week meetings in December.
Yes.
Take up a lot of time. So.
I also agree, as Amy said it, these are living documents, you know, I think
Mhm.
for tonight's purposes, unless we see something we really want.
Something for postings for people who want to plan for the future
Yeah.
when the meetings are taking place.
Otherwise, I mean, I would just take a motion on this.
Well, we should decide the February
Okay.
18 or March 18.
February
I'd go for
18th
March.
or
February 25 or March 11th.
Why don't we do February 25?
Let's do February 25 because Kim will be at that one, and since she isn't running in, she won't be at the March one.
And also, we're not hitting new board members with
Yeah.
3 meetings in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think it's better off that way.
All right, so let's add that one in. And then unless there's other questions or comments, I'd say let's do a motion to approve this.
Just for all those out there listening, it's a lot of commitment when being on this board, so a lot of time.
Don't tell them that.
Right, you're trying to recruit Lynn.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take a motion on this one. Well, want somebody. Okay, good.
I move to approve the select board calendar cycles for 2025.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Second from Brandon, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. All right, great, so we got that tentatively scheduled. All right, so we're gonna do two things on the local option tax, and I know there'll probably people listening or interested in this. The first one is to do the ballot language for the expenditure of the existing rooms, meals, alcohol local option tax that has to be approved by the voters in March. The second is involving our proposed ballot article to adopt a 1% local option sales tax, particularly with language that would automatically use those funds to reduce the tax burden on citizens.
Or reduce the otherwise larger increase.
Yes, exactly. All right, so let's take the first one, which is the proposed ballot article using the money for the trucks and everything like that.
Okay, and just, so you know, Marcy has been waiting on her
All
hands
right,
up.
let's hear from Marcy first. Marcy, like I mentioned, there are two aspects to this. The first is language that will appear on the ballot this March, proposing to use local option tax funds to purchase vehicles for public safety, essentially. And the second would be the wording for a proposed local option sales tax. Other than that, turn it over to you, Marcy.
Oh, gee, thanks. Marcy Bartlett Wilder. I just a note that the living document must therefore apply to the living schedule of the select board members who are on the board. Yeah, that's a growing, ever living thing. The thing I had sent, it looks like there was a letter that you, John, added that came subsequent to my email to you yesterday or the day before, whatever. So it's not on page 160 any longer. It's back a page or two. But let me read my request. The L.O.T article, local option sales tax, shall the town authorize the establishment of a local option sales tax as recommended by the Hartford Selectboard, the proceeds of which shall be applied as general fund revenue to reduce the municipal property tax rate. Here's my question. Is there a way to make the language more descriptive and clear, particularly as pertains to procedures as to how decisions to use said funds get made, how those decisions get made, okay? I'm looking for language that communicates to Hartford voters that this is not simply tax and spend when there is a significant conversation going on in town that really hates this ballot article in the first place. Is there a way to take in this revenue, then encumber it as the tax rate is getting set and not use the funds for new expenditures? And I don't know if Gail is on Zoom or present. I'm not there to see, but I wondered if that was even possible. And again, I acknowledge that there's always going to be time for public comment when purchases get discussed, but really looking to tighten up the language if that's possible.
I can tell you that we've just heard from legal counsel today who suggested a little different phrasing of the local option sales tax ballot language. And the newer version that the select board has been given reads as follows. Shall the town assess a 1% tax on sales pursuant to 24 VSA section 138B, with the proceeds of such sales being dedicated exclusively to offset town municipal property tax rates.
So that's,
Okay.
that sounds fairly clear. It's
That's new language that you just received. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. I think that's an improvement.
I mean, I think the idea, Marcy, is that instead of like the other local option tax where we propose kind of, hey, we could use it for this or use it for that.
Which we have to do.
Which we have to do. The idea with this is like that revenue, it basically goes to pay down the tax rate increase, you know?
Sure. And the question of, I was sort of even getting more clear was, is there a way to encumber that money for the purpose of that role when the tax rate gets set?
Well, normally, Marcy, the way this works, in my experience, is that the town develops a budget to go to the voters, and the voters approve the budget, and then we know how much we need to raise by property taxes, and that's how the board sets tax rates in July. However, again, at the tail end of the budget process, we look at not only the expenses that the town wishes to incur, but also what are our revenue streams. And this year, for example, we had revenue from services that the town provides, and those fees amount to a significant portion of money. And we had the opportunity again to use the unassigned fund, which is taxpayer money sitting in an account. Basically, maybe you can call it surplus from previous years. And we have the property tax. Those have been the only three tools in the tool belt, so to speak, to have revenues to match expenses that we think are necessary. This sales tax would provide an extra tool. It would have an amount of money that is collected through sales taxes in Hartford, which can then be applied directly to offset the property tax rates, which otherwise would be needed. So, for example, let's say the town collected $750,000 in local option sales tax proceeds. That could have been applied this year in our budget deliberations, such that maybe the tax bill of someone coming out of this budget cycle would have been approximately $130 less on that mythical $250,000 home. So that's a means by which the town can maybe ease the burden on property taxpayers with a tax that is not paid 100% by property owners.
I appreciate that info. A couple questions. Are other towns in the state that you know of doing something similar with a local option sales tax specific to help remediate property taxes? Yes,
in several towns, and most recently I discovered in Londonderry, Vermont, towns have decided to dedicate some or all of the local option taxes to property tax, again, offsets.
The other question I might have is using that scenario of the $250,000 home and the $130 off on your tax bill. That's, we don't know what those dollars would be were we to have that tax assessed. But $130 off of an increase of $2,000 doesn't feel like a lot for those who are really on the edge. That's just another way to look at that. I do have a concern of any new tax becoming a permanent thing. I know it can always be brought before the voters again, but extra money is never feeling like a bad thing, right? So it would tend to, human nature being what it is, it would tend to become codified, you know, in our town's tax structure.
And just a reminder, on Monday night, there's going to be an info session here where we'll talk about what the actual ballot wording is and what it would mean. We'll have representatives from the tax department available at the meeting, particularly because we know that the Vermont sales tax exempts food, clothing, medical supplies, but I know that people have questions about specific items. I'm hoping we can have the expertise of the tax folks here on Monday to answer all the questions about that. Tonight, we're basically going to vote on the language that will go on the ballot for March. And then once we've got that set, the idea of the info night on Monday and other things, outreach, is to really give people an understanding of what the tax would do, so that they can make up their mind whether to support it or not. I think what we found is that it's actually quite a large amount. And when you apply that solely to reduce the amount of money needed in a budget from the property tax, the savings can be quite impressive, I think. And so that's something we have a job to do, those of us who advocate for this, to make our point and to make sure that the public has all their questions answered. And I know that's going to be a process that goes on. So I do appreciate you reaching out to us tonight with these questions.
Yep.
We hope to be able to get you as much information.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Of course, there's always the thing of semantics. You've got the extra funds and purchasing a new dump truck and a cruiser out of those funds does reduce the tax rate that would have to get charged. It can sound like semantics, and I think that it's important that we understand what we're talking about here.
Absolutely, and that's a great point, a very fair point.
And what you'll see Monday night is not just maybe an hour-long session with Mike leading that discussion, but also a follow-up on the existing rooms, meals, and alcohol tax, which is where the town has collected more than $500,000 at present, which can be used to buy needed items, which therefore can be taken out of the general fund budget, which means we have to raise less than we otherwise would by the property tax.
Have you received, I just wanted to ask if you had received feedback from the business community in Hartford about this, pro or con?
I mean, I think we've heard from people sort of individually. I think the idea of Monday night, as the first of a series of meetings to really give the opportunity, a venue for people to come in and discuss it with us. We made the decision in one of our last meetings to put the local option sales tax on the ballot. So that's been approved by the board. Tonight, our goal is to decide what precise language it is that's going to be on the ballot.
Okay.
So it's one of those, it's a process, and people have questions, and we're going to try and do our best between now and town meeting day to make sure that the information is available to people who want to engage with it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Marcy. So Kim, and then I think we should get back into order of the agenda, which is first the language for the vehicle purchases, then the language of the local option sales tax ballot question. Kim?
John, can you tell us when the FAQ about local option tax will start being disseminated?
I'm hopeful for tomorrow. We've kind of held off thinking that maybe we'd have more guidance from this ballot article language to put in so that we didn't have to speculate as to what the board might want to do, for example, with sales tax. If we can confirm that it's going to be dedicated to offsetting tax rates, that's going to be a big selling point or a big explaining point in the discussion on Monday, for example. So
John, why don't you tell us, since we got to go through these sort of
Mhm.
one by one.
Yep.
The lock ballot articles.
Sure.
Why don't you tell us what that is, the language, and we'll.
Yeah. So I think it was 2017, the town enacted a rooms, meal, and alcohol tax. Funds weren't sufficient until 2019 for voters to vote on proposed uses. And since that time, every year, the town has gone to the voters asking for the use of that rooms, meal, and alcohol tax revenue for various purposes. I know one year it was used to support libraries. Another year it was used to purchase a fire vehicle. And there have been other uses along the way. But specifically, the charter provides that all rooms, meal, and alcohol tax revenues shall be deposited into a capital reserve account until the voters dictate otherwise. So this is the process by which we ask the voters to dictate otherwise, to actually spend some of those funds. So we have more than $500,000 in that fund as of today, with more coming on a quarterly basis. So the first package is the package of vehicles, which, as Marcy points out, would otherwise have to be purchased through the general fund. But as an alternative, again, trying to respect the taxpayers, we've packaged them up so that if we get voter approval, these vehicles, these needed vehicles will be purchased outside of the general fund. And so the first article reads as follows: shall the town authorize the expenditure of $442,000 of local option tax revenues already in hand from the local option tax on rooms, meals, and alcohol toward the purchase of several vehicles as follows. One, for the Department of Public Works, a 6-wheel dump plow truck to replace a 2017 truck, and B, a 4x4 3/4 to 1 ton mechanic pickup truck with a utility body to replace a 2011 vehicle. Total cost within that DPW request, $280,000. Number two, for the Department of Public, for the Parks and Rec Department, a 4-wheel drive heavy-duty pickup truck with a utility flatbed and lift gate to replace a 2011 pickup truck, and B, a park grounds utility vehicle or gator with electric cargo dump to replace a 2014 vehicle. Total for those two vehicles is $87,000. And finally, for the police department, a new cruiser to replace an older one with high mileage, $75,000 assigned for that. If you add those three different departmental requests, that totals $442,000.
Questions for John on the language on this one? Okay.
Well, just to make note that we should do as amended.
Yes.
For number 2 should say
Yep.
Public Works.
Yep, that's been done.
I mean, just for consistency, can we have a year for the cruiser being replaced?
I've asked the chief for that, and they're working on the PowerPoint as we speak.
Kim, I think you misspoke. You said number 2 should say for Public Works.
Oh,
You
sorry.
meant to
Number two
say
should
number
say
2
Parks
should
and
say.
Rec.
for
Yes.
Parks and Rec.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
So John will make those changes. I think of the motion that he gave us on the other sheet is to basically just approve the language. So as long as he gets those changes, I think we're good.
I have one idea. I don't want to make it overly complicated, but I'm just curious on people's thoughts about adding a phrase. So, use a local auction tax already in hand toward the purchase of several vehicles. Could potentially add, determine necessary by department heads to maintain town infrastructure and public safety. As follows. If we want to underscore that these are deemed necessary by leadership of town staff and they're not just like would be nice for purchases.
I will certainly be willing to run that by council. There is a fine line between informing voters and lobbying them or
Yeah,
entering into too much persuasive discussion.
okay, yeah.
But I mean, that's coming close to the line, but maybe doesn't cross it. If you'd
Well,
like, I'd be happy to run that by
I don't
it.
know. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has.
I mean, it's almost self-evident that they're there in front of the voters because the department
Yeah.
heads have deemed them necessary. And in fact, they'll certainly make that argument in the public sessions on Monday and then again later in the process that they have viewed these as necessary purchases.
Yeah.
I do like IDIS language. I mean, I think it's something I'd use if I were trying to sell it, you know, a little bit. But Brandon, you had your hand up?
Well, I like the idea. I wonder if you could also run by council something like toward the purchase of several vehicles that are nearing the end of the lifespan the town would normally accept or something, you know, like the reasoning behind why this would otherwise have to more or less be funded by the general fund.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that there's ballot language, right, which is one thing, and then there's the responsibility of department heads and us to explain and make the case to the voters why they need them, you know, and I think we're starting to conflate two different things. You know what I mean? I mean, the ballot language, it should just be, I feel like it should just be clear to the voters that there's this amount of money, this is what it's going towards, you know? The reasons why we need to replace vehicles, you know, the reasons, things like that, that I think that's incumbent on the department heads to explain. And I'm a little wary of mixing what I think is advocacy with ballot language. Yep.
And quite frankly, like any department or the select board, knowing that the consideration to fund something through local option tax may fail. I mean, it came up during our budget presentation discussions that if this is how we fund something, there is a small chance that the voters might not approve it. And I do think that is a lot about our ability with communications to be able to really make it clear to the voters that this is not additional, like this is money that's already been raised, and it's been raised by this other resource. And if we don't use it, it's just going to sit in the account. It is not going to reduce your tax rate. It's just going to make our infrastructure older.
So if people are generally all right with the length of that.
I think the less said, the better.
Yeah.
I just lay it out there. They're gonna know that this is a recommendation from the department heads. It comes down to us. We don't know what happens with the departments. We don't know whether it needs to be replaced or not. We're taking the advice of department heads.
Well, let's put it this way. All of these purchases originally sat in the general fund budget.
Right. Yes.
And only when the select board made it clear that we needed to find some savings did this idea arise that let's use this other resource to take some burden off the property
I
taxpayer.
just think the more overcomplicated you make it, the more questions you have, and the harder it is to explain.
Yeah, I agree with everyone's comments, and thanks for talking through it. And I think that maybe this is more of a note for public communication in general around it when we're doing the advocacy piece. And I agree with keeping it separate from the ballot measure piece.
I'll take a motion on this one if everyone's satisfied with the language as it looks and will appear on the ballot. Yep.
Chair, I move that the select board approve the proposed ballot article language as amended for the grouped vehicle purchases from local option tax on rooms, meals, and alcohol.
Motion, we have a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second from Lanny. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Same idea with this next one, language involving the jaws of life.
Yes, shall the town authorize the expenditure of $58,000 of local option tax revenue already in hand from the rooms, meals, and alcohol taxes toward the purchase of vehicle rescue tools, also known as jaws of life, for the Hartford Fire Department?
Questions for John?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, well, Graham, you have a question first?
I did, just because Jaws of Life is technically a registered trademark, like styrofoam.
Oh.
You might want to ask whether we can include it in a ballot without repercussion.
I would say extrication equipment.
Mechanical extrication equipment. I don't.
Right, but
Actually
that
hydraulic.
doesn't really get the message across either, as well as Jaws of Life. Let me,
Just figure that out, and I think we
What
can.
about hydraulic
approve it.
rescue tool?
I think we can tentatively approve this.
That would be-
John, if you want to run.
I'll tell you what,
Run this by.
you can pass a motion to approve this language.
Yeah.
I will investigate it, and we still would have until January 21st to modify the article.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I'm gonna substitute the word hydraulic rescue tool and we can change that later, okay? So I move to approve the proposed ballot article language for the hydraulic extrication tool purchase from local option taxes on rooms, meals and alcohol for the fire department.
We have a second.
A second.
We have a second. Ken, any discussion?
I am troubled by the language.
How are we
That's
gonna?
just one person's
How?
view as to how many people in the
Can we
community
get a
will
hold of Chief
understand
Cooney to
that.
find out what the actual language is?
I'm sorry?
Can we get a hold of Chief Cooney to find out what the actual?
No, but I'm
piece of-
saying, my preferred outcome would be you adopt this language, but that if there's a problem with Jaws of Life, we can come back on January 21st and pass something vaguer like yours.
So we pass Jaws of Life. John goes and finds out if we can really use it. If we can't, at our next meeting, we change it to hydraulic, whatever
Extrication.
Yeah.
Chief Cooney says is the appropriate.
Right. I just worry that there's an awful lot of people who might not understand what we're talking about. But everybody understands what Jaws of Life are.
So we had a motion in a second, so we move.
All right, I'm gonna-
Withdraw your motion and just.
I'm just gonna withdraw my motion.
Okay, so you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I'll make this motion to approve the proposed ballot article language for the Jaws of Life purchase from local option taxes on rooms, meals and alcohol.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion.
Just that I'm sorry.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, all right. Final one, so this is what the proposed new local option sales tax language would be. And John, there is updated language that you handed out to us for the motion.
Yes.
From our attorney, right?
That's correct. I'm looking for it now.
Okay, so
The new
town
language
sets a
is, yes,
1% tax on sales pursuant to 24 VSA section 138B. The proceeds of such sales tax being dedicated exclusively to offset town municipal property tax rates.
right.
Kim?
Do we need to include that language of that statute in the ballot, in the voting booth?
It was recommended by our attorney. I don't think it's required because even in this version that didn't have this language, Eli said it's probably, it's good enough, but that he would prefer this language.
Right, but I mean, the actual statute, so pursuant to 24 VSA section 138B.
Mhm.
Like, should that language?
This is language that authorizes a town to enact a local option tax.
I think that we should at least have copies of that available at the polls, like for
If
anyone.
we
that-
want, I think. So he said he'd probably prefer we have the statutory citation.
Mhm.
It would be okay if we did. Then he tweaked the language to make it clear it's exclusively to offset the town municipal property tax rates, right?
Mhm.
So I don't really care.
I could certainly ask Lisa, can she have that handy?
Like, for example, when we had the welcoming Hartford ordinance on the ballot, we had a copy of the entire ordinance taped inside each of the voting booths.
Right, just like we did with the town charter, it was
Yes.
available.
Yeah.
But here, we're not adopting this statute. This is just referencing a statute that already exists.
Yeah. I mean, I
We can
think-
adopt it and John can find out what Lisa thinks with the idea. If we keep this language in, if we can have a copy available of the statute, that'd be helpful. And then we can always tweak it, just like we're gonna probably maybe tweak the Jaws of Life.
Right, the key is that we know what the purpose of the money being collected would be for.
Right.
That's what's going to help us
Yeah,
proceed with all these discussions. Yeah.
100%. And I like saying the statute. I'm just saying, like, if people might not know what a hydraulic extrication tool is,
Mhm.
they also are not gonna know
Yeah,
what 24 VSA section 138B is,
Right.
right? So if they have access to it, I mean, they've got a phone, they could Google it maybe, but
Yeah, I'd say we, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there's a simple way to describe it, like similar to what we have on the other local option tax. There's like a, layman description that's rooms, meals and alcohol taxes.
Well, we could
I
say,
don't want to overcomplicate
yeah.
language, but is there a way to sort of make a little bit of a nod to like what
Yeah.
is excluded?
oh, well, not that.
not on the ballot.
Not that, but what we could do, I'm thinking you were saying to get rid of the phrase pursuant to 24 VSA section 138B,
Yeah.
you could simply say, shall the town assess a 1% tax on sales as allowed by Vermont law with the proceeds of such sales tax going to offset?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's like, sort of like what we discussed before, it's like explaining to people what is and what isn't subject to the Vermont sales tax is sort of our
Every
job to do.
responsibility, right?
And there's a 4-page document
Yeah,
that's online that the state has published. Awfully hard to shoehorn all that information into a ballot article.
I like, so basically what we're saying is, shall we assess a 1% tax as allowed by Vermont law? I think that's easier than actually having the statutory
Yeah.
citation, because people might.
Very, it's a
Yeah.
Vermont statute or something like
Mhm.
that.
Okay, Brandon?
I didn't know that Vermont has a 4-page description of what is included, what is not included.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
That's 4 pages is good. If it's a good summary, is that part of our widespread distribution? And
Yes.
could it be a mailer? Could we just mail the 4 pages out to voters?
That's gonna put it in a higher mailing fee.
I
It's gonna be
understand it's quite a lot
expensive.
of money, but
Just the
that-
logistics though of putting together something and addressing everything and I think,
Why don't we see, because John's putting out an FAQ
Yeah,
tomorrow.
let's
Why
see
don't
how
we take
you
a
all,
look at
let's see
that
how
and
you'll all
see what-
respond to that. Because it's basically, it's a set of 15 commonly asked questions and with as many links to authoritative sources as possible,
Okay.
I mean,
like your 4-page document.
is it, can you not add, like, so when someone requests a mail-in ballot, is it not lawful to add something to that? Like, could we stuff a FAQ in there?
I don't think Lisa would have
I
any part of,
think once
would have
again,
any
we're-
part of
Okay.
We're
Right.
getting,
Forgot I mentioned it.
lobbying.
we're mixing two
I re-
separate
Okay.
things, Well, I'll take a motion on this.
Keep it simple, stupid.
There you go.
Yes.
Who are you calling us to?
Kim? Who'd like to make the
Chair,
motion?
I move that the proposed, look, this is the way I'm reading the motion is from this sheet, and I just say let's see, go back here. I move that the select board approve the proposed ballot article language regarding the adoption of a 1% local option tax with funds raised being dedicated to to offset the town municipal property tax rate
Mhm.
with a minor amendment to change the statute, the Vermont statute language to. Am I going to?
You're complicating
I
it.
think if you just take.
You're
the
complicating
new
it.
Language we got
Yeah.
and strike the statutory site and say, shall the town assess a 1%
Okay.
tax on sales
Thank you.
in accordance with Vermont law, with the proceeds of such sales tax being dedicated exclusively to offset town municipal property tax rates.
So moved.
Something like that.
So Lana, I moved
Yes.
what Mike just said.
Okay. So
I
we
can
have
give her
a-
the document, so.
We have a motion, we have a second,
Oh, second.
Ida, discussion,
Let's ship it.
all right. Everybody on, I'm
Send
here
it.
on Monday too, by the way. All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is fairly quick. It's ratifying the approvals that the vice chair made during the holidays.
And thanks to Kim for coming in and doing that. And Christmas Eve.
If no one has any questions on that, I would take a motion for J on motion. Danny?
I moved that the select board ratify the full select board. You have to say full.
No, I don't think so. I just say the select board.
I moved that select board ratify the actions of Vice Chair Kim Souza on December 21st, 2024 to provisionally approve the payment manifest of December 20th, 2024, payment manifest of December 26th, 2024, and check register of December 26th, 2024.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Brandon. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Our last item is an exception to the purchasing policy for winter rock salt that was added beginning of our meeting. John, I don't know if you want Brian to.
Yes,
explain. We
Brian,
have a-
Brian should be online. I texted him a few minutes ago, alerting him.
Okay, and he can walk us through that. And then
Yes.
We'll make that motion.
He's just coming over as a panelist.
Be a quick Brian, 9 o'clock.
This is pretty straightforward, I think, right? So.
Yes, good evening, everybody. And my apologies for getting this to you so late. We just found out on Friday. Last year, we were able to utilize Cargill has a state contract, and it's put out by V-Trans districts. So last year, back in May, due to the mild winter last year, we were able to store up our rock salt. And so we just recently got to the point now in winter that we needed to buy rock salt. So we went out to get the price from Cargill. It was $86.75. State contract price is $86.10, which is what we had anticipated and budgeted for this year. So there is a slight price difference, but more comes down to following the procurement policy. Because we can't go off state contract, I have to ask you now for this exception to it. We did reach out to American Salt. They can't fulfill our order this year. And like I mentioned, the last time we did do a competitive bid was in 2021. So it's a lack of vendors in the area. And just we have about enough salt for about 2 more storms. So we just hate to push it and try to put out an RFP to see if we can get any other applicants with so little salt left.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Okay.
Ready to make a motion? Any questions? All right.
Motion.
I move that in accordance with section 3.7 of the town purchasing policy, the select board waive the requirement for competitive bidding for the purchase of approximately 2,500 tons of winter rock salt and authorize the town manager to sign an agreement with Cargill at a price of $86.75 per ton.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
And a second?
Okay, any discussion? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
We'll go to commission reports. Kim, anything?
Do not.
Brandon? No. Got it.
Nope.
Danny?
Nope.
I have none, so consent agenda, I'll take a motion.
Kim, you want me to do it?
Go ahead if you're there.
Okay, yep, okay. Everything's right here, on correct?
With the
Yep.
possible exception of a January 23rd placeholder meeting.
But
That
we
should
don't
be,
have
that should be added to the list of meetings.
Okay, January 23rd.
Okay, all right. So make a motion to approve the consent agenda, approve payroll ending 1/4/2025, approve AP manifest of 1/3/2025 and 1/7/2025, approve meeting minutes of 12/10/2024, 12/17/2025, 2024, that would be, and 12/19/2024 instead of 25. Future meeting nights of 1/13/2025 info night, 1/21/2025, January 23rd, 2025, 2/4/2025, 2/18/2025, 2/24/2025, budget and candidates night.
All right, we have a motion.
Wait, didn't we also add a 225 meeting?
No, 223.
No, 220, no, for 123.
123.
I got it. I covered it.
No, but we also just added a meeting before the election.
Yes, February 25.
You're right. Friendly amendment accepted.
Do we also have 24?
We have February 24th as budget and candidates.
Budget candidates.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
then adding 25,
Accepted.
225.
All right, we have a
Let's ship
motion.
it.
We have a second.
I will second.
We have a second from Kim.
Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Second from Ida. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are
Aye.
adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, just remember that Lana is taking these minutes, so when we rapid fire through.
I'll hear about it in the morning.
All right.
Hey, I didn't have any crunching going on. She shouldn't complain.